Rooted is a podcast about full person health, mind, body, and spirit, grounded in ancient biblical wisdom and guided by modern wellness insights.
As Christian health coaches, we believe true wellness starts from the inside out, and it is our goal to inspire, encourage, and equip you to pursue health that's rooted in truth, not trends.
I'm ready.
All right, welcome to Holy Rooted. We have a very special guest on today. We've got Mr. Daniel Vitalis. Daniel Vitalis is a public speaker, writer, podcaster, and the host of the TV series Wild Fed. A lifestyle pioneer, he's been educating the public for 2 decades on natural health, nutrition, wild foods, and aligning our lives with the natural world. He podcasts and operates his nutritional supplement company, Surthrival, from the Lake region of Maine, where he lives with his incredible wife, Avani, and their 2 Plott hounds. Which I'm curious quickly, what are their names, your Plott hounds?
Oh, Ellie is the older dog, and then her son Diaz.
Cute. Ellie and Diaz. I love that. Okay, Daniel, I think it's kind of fun and unique to just get started with like a quick icebreaker for our listeners to hear a little bit about who you are from another perspective, okay? Vacation spot, mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet.
What book are you currently reading other than the Bible?
Hollywood Babylon.
Ooh. Okay, you might have to digress on that one. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
That's
a hard one.
I know, that is a tough
I like
one.
them both.
That's a tough one. Yeah, we can just go with sun. Beautiful sun.
Get more sun.
Okay, your wife, Avani, do you like her hair up or down better?
Half.
Oh, that is
Samurai
my husband.
bun.
Yes,
Bun.
that's my husband's answer. He wants it half up all the time. That's funny. How many push-ups can you do in a row?
Well, I did 100 the other day,
Nice.
but I was injured after, and we have Murph coming up, and that's 200. So here we go.
Oh my goodness.
But I prefer sets of 5 to 10.
Smart.
Would be my preference.
Smart. Okay, finish this scripture. For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than...
Oh, a 2-edged sword.
Yes.
And able to separate flesh from bone and spirit from soul from spirit, maybe?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Joints
Bingo.
and marrow.
Bingo.
There's probably a few versions of that too.
Yeah, I think there are quite a
Sort
few these
through.
days. Huh?
Yeah,
Paraphrase.
That's right. That's Hebrews 4:12. I think we can definitely talk about that one later on. Okay, final question. You've traveled the globe, but what would your Last Supper meal be?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with the bread and wine on that one. I don't care really about exotic food, really. Even though, I mean, I've made a living
that's so
with exotic
interesting.
food, but I
Yeah.
mean, I eat temple food, you know what I mean? Simple
Yeah.
food. So, I wouldn't want anything too elaborate.
Okay, I love that.
That's cool.
That in and of itself, I think, is a testimony to your transformed heart. Okay, Daniel. So, just a minute for our listeners. I found you as I was going through my health and wellness coaching certification through IIN, and you were one of the speakers, one of the teachers of one of my modules. And as I was watching you, I loved what you had to say. Your session was about rewilding and getting reintegrated with nature and how humans are really lacking in that area. But I'll be honest, as I was watching you, I thought, man, this guy's got a lot of hubris. He's got a little bit of pride. He's got a little bit of, like, for lack of a better word, little man syndrome.
Wow, Lucy, just way to just punch him
Put
in
it
the
out
gut,
there.
bro.
Okay.
It
That's
was
how we
like,
start.
just being real honest here.
Yeah, Tom
But it
Cruise
was-
in Magnolia is the character that
Yes.
you make me think of.
Okay.
You said it.
You said it. But I thought, man, if only he knew the Lord. I just felt this heaviness in my heart of his teaching is correct. What he's saying has so much wise information, and I really feel it to be true. But I wish that he could come at it from a biblical perspective.
Mm.
And from a few of the things you said, I I could tell that you didn't know Jesus.
Mm.
So after your teaching, I just happened to look you up on Instagram. I thought, I wonder where this guy is now, you know? And when I did, it was this past September, and you had recently posted about your baptism.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, how cool, God, like, thank you. You did come into his heart, and now he is a changed person. And then fast forward to, today you happened to post something about interviews, and I thought, I'll just give it a try. I'm going to see if he would be willing to let us interview him, because there's some alignment in the faith and the natural world, and you were so gracious to do so.
Oh, I'm happy to come. And I, obviously appreciate not only you guys hosting me here, but also your audience for taking the time to check out what I have to say too. So
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
we're really excited to have you on, because the mission of our podcast is really to share about whole person health and grounded in biblical wisdom. And we just think that, like Lucy said, you have that gift and sharing that in such an effective way. And so we really just want to effectively communicate how you can stay rooted in truth, not trends, and wholly rooted. That's basically what our mission is. And so we just hope that our guests can hear what you share and your knowledge, and just this natural way and organic conversation, pun intended.
Yeah. So we want you to take the reins. We want the Spirit to lead as well. And we'll kind of, budge in if we've got some questions glaring. We did both listen to your you with Mystic at Heart with Matthew Fisher.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We loved that episode. That was another one that kind of thought, maybe he would do this for us. So why don't you just kind of begin with what rewilding is for the listeners, and then you just take the lead.
Yeah, so have been fascinated in this topic for a really long time, but it came out of my interest in food, which started, pretty early in my life, because I had sort of a unfortunate upbringing. And so food was always something I was thinking about, and like learning how to feed myself in particular. But when I was 16, I had really an awakening around food, and it's just occurred to me one day that there's got to be a food that's right for people, because when you look at other animals, they all have like a pretty easy to discern diet.
Yeah.
So like if you just picked a wild animal and you were like, I want to know what a wood thrush eats. Well, you could just look it up, and it would be like, here's a list of all the foods that a wood thrush eats, or a groundhog, or a tiger, or a lemur, or an orca, or excuse me, any animal. We know what their diets are. That's just part of zoology.
Right.
Then when you look at human beings, you're like, well, what do human beings eat? And it's like, oh, we don't remember. We're not sure. We're in a pretty strange predicament.
Yeah.
From the biblical perspective, it's not that much more clear, is it? It's sort of like there's a confusing narrative, because it kind of starts off seed-bearing plants and herbs, and then it's like, okay, now everything, and then it's like, well, here's a whole bunch of restrictions, and then it's like, okay, now there's no restrictions except just a couple, and then it's not been real clear to people for a long time. Like, what are we best off eating? And you guys mentioned before about trends, and we are in such an unfortunate period of time with regard to that. So it takes several decades of interest in the topic to note the trends.
Yes.
But anybody who's been interested in any other topic for a period of time will have seen this in their area of study, field of research. So, even if you were just into pants, you'd be like, oh, wow, I get it now. After 30 years, I get it.
Right.
The legs are going to get wider and narrower. The waists are going to get taller and lower.
Yeah.
And it's just going to keep cycling.
And now we're back to pedal pushers again. Yeah. Have you noticed?
It's really funny. Like last year, I started to be like, oh, the baggy cargo pants again. Yeah. Like back that was cool when I was younger. A girl wearing baggy cargo pants and like a tight top was cool. And then it became not cool.
Right.
Now it's cool again. So that's how food goes. I always bring up eggs. I think it's the funniest example, because the number of times I've been told eggs are good for me and bad for me in my 48 years now is just astonishing.
Yeah.
And that can't be right.
Right.
It can't be that they were good and then they became bad and then they were good again and they became bad. It has to be fashion.
Where's the truth?
It has to be trend, right? And, just looking at it simply, like an egg is a one animal cell.
Mm.
So if I know that like a piece of steak can be good for me or a piece of chicken can be good for me, then how can a one individual cell of an animal be bad for me? That doesn't even make any sense logically at all. But
Mm-hmm.
we're not playing in the realm of logic.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually
Mm-hmm.
playing in a completely different kind of artificial realm.
That's
So
right.
I started asking myself, like, what's natural food? I remember eating a mango sitting on a hilltop overlooking the supermarket I just bought it at. And that mango was so ripe and it was like running down my face. And I thought at the time, I was a teenager and I was living out of a tent on purpose at the time because I was like, hey, I'm sick of being in houses. I want to see. I was working as a lifeguard at the beach. So I
Wow.
kind of had like a nice job where in the daytime I'd be in the water and running on the beach and all that anyway. So I just stayed in my tent the whole summer and just started exploring like, what's it like to just let go of some of these, domesticated accoutrements and like, what would life be like? And at that time, I remember I looking at the supermarket. I lived pretty rurally, so it kind of looked like the supermarket had just dropped down out of the sky and like landed in this field. You know what I mean? Because
Wow.
it's all nature around it, except this giant parking lot and this building. And I thought, like, I'm eating that mango, and I'm thinking, this has got to be a human food. I mean, the way that I felt like I was absorbing that mango juice, it was like this has to be for people, and that started me
Yeah.
really thinking about it. But I did not know then this is the scariest part of being a human. I did not know then what I didn't know.
Right.
Right? That's going on right now as I sit here and talk to you. It's
Right.
going
You
on for
don't
both of
know what you
you.
don't
None of us
know.
know what we don't know. And that's
Hmm.
humbling,
Yes.
really humbling, especially with hindsight. But that
But
led
how
me to,
cool that God took you through that moment and now you can go back to it. It's so cool how he pieces these things together that we knew in that moment we didn't know what it was, but then you get to go back and remember, oh, he
yeah,
was working there. That was part of it, you know?
yeah. And for me, my whole life, what I do now, I see now, it's so cliche to kind of like have this conversation, but I can see, of course, now that the hardships that I experienced as a young person, and also God's been in my life since I was very young, so I went to some Christian schools when I was a kid, and was involved in the church then, and then became involved in the church again in my early 20s for
Hmm.
a much more significant period of time. And then fell away from that again and went deep into the wilderness then,
Yeah.
Okay, so
deep
what were
in
you doing in the church in your early 20s? Just curious.
in my 20s. Yeah, it's a really interesting story. So I'm this really very serious hardcore health person at the time. I'd gone to Hawaii with the intention of eating fruit and living in a tent. Like, I
Yeah.
want to be a natural person. I didn't understand that I would get there and it would be like, oh yeah, everything's developed and it's private land. I can't just, you know what I mean? I had this, I first tried this when I was 18 and I thought I would go to Florida and do that. And I
Oh,
got to
wow,
Tampa and it
way
was like,
off.
oh yeah, yeah. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
I grew up in Maine. Then I went to Hawaii. It was a bit more of a project involving some other people. It was the early days of the internet then, so you could connect with people, and a bunch of people were going to go to Maui and try this project. Well, I got there and I made it like 6 months or so. And when I came back, a buddy that I had connected with there, we were raw foodists. So I was not just a vegan, but I was a raw food vegan. But I wasn't just that, I was a fruitarian. So I wasn't
Mm.
eating salt or oil or anything but
No meat
whole,
either.
no, 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 no,
No.
no.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, I went like a decade and a half like that.
Wow.
And very long term for that. So
How
I
did
come
you
back,
feel? How did you feel doing that, by the way? Just curious.
elitist. Yeah, so in the beginning, I felt quite good. I
Okay.
felt quite good. I remember the first week of it. I was house sitting I did a lot of work with foster kids when I was younger. So I was
Oh,
taking care
cool.
of some kids for like the parents' vacation. So they were in Aruba. And I'm taking care of the kids, but it's the daytime there at school, and I'm just pounding fruit. I remember it was the Columbine massacre that week, because
Mm.
I remember that being on the news.
Yeah.
And I can remember I was so high on fruit sugar and a lack of protein. I remember I was there was a graveyard there, and I remember getting on one of the tombstones and trying to backflip off it. But I did not know how to backflip. This was not a good
Wow.
idea. I was
Okay.
just spinning high, So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go you live like that. You live on like kind of a high frequency, and it does certain things for you. It's like prayer and fasting. It's like it clarifies certain things but it also runs out because it's
Right.
like a short-term thing. But if you
Right.
push it long-term, so second half of it, I was just hungry and miserable, but I kept doing it because it was ideological.
Mm.
And that's
Right.
one of those danger zones,
Yep.
ideology.
Yep.
I always say like, any kind of ism, you got to be so careful with isms,
Yes.
And I think that's why this topic is one of those that becomes taboo in the church because,
Mhm.
or at least that's one of the pushbacks that I've heard is, well, we don't want to idolize a way of eating,
Mm,
or
yeah,
Mhm.
this is not, Jesus is the one that saves, so we don't need to talk about the food being
Mhm.
right.
helpful.
Mhm.
And that's obviously not what we're here to do at all. And I
Right.
think,
No, but I think it's interesting how I was thinking about this morning because I was thinking about sex and sexuality and how I've been reading Hollywood Babylon. And it's interesting how you'll get this argument from people like who want to support sexual deviancy. So they'll say like, well, it feels good. Why would it be bad? Or why would I have these desires? Or why? And it's like, well, that's the same way with food, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, hey, it feels really good to eat
Mhm.
anything you want while
Mhm.
you're eating it,
Yep.
but you clearly destroys you physically in the same way that it feels good at first to go out and, experience sexuality like that. And then you find yourself eventually with your whole life falling apart because of it. I just know that from experience. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting how it'll be obvious to the church that, hey, it's not good to do that with your sexuality, that appetite, but then it's hard for them to see it with your dietary appetites.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I've heard it explained as indulgences. There's physical indulgences. There
yeah,
are, mental indulgences. And like you said, ideological. The Bible is very clear on do not indulge. And I think that means in all aspects.
yeah,
There's
or
got to
let your
be that.
moderation be known to all, right? So it's
Yeah.
something like that. And then,
Yeah.
okay, so anyway, I got a little off track there, but I think that in the church, I saw that, I've just come out of the world of hunting. I've just made 6 seasons of my TV show. And when I stepped into the world of hunting, this is for me for anywhere I go. I just never quite fit in anywhere. So in the world of hunting, it was like, it's very common to be obese in
Yeah.
that world. And
Wow.
you'd think like, yeah, but you have all this game meat. It's like, oh, we don't really eat that. We just and so you'll
Interesting.
see a lot of obesity. And it's funny because it's a thing focused on kind of what could be some of the best food around.
Absolutely.
Similar in the church is you see just a lot of really unhealthy people.
Hmm.
And there's that sense of, well, the body's a corrupt thing, which is actually a Gnostic idea, not a Christian idea. It's a
Mm.
Gnostic idea. But the body's sort of this temporal thing, so it doesn't matter because of what matters is the spirit. I would love to push back on that as we go further, but I want to kind
Yes.
of
Yeah.
carry on. So I digress. So you would ask what I was doing in the church. So I come back from Hawaii. My friend Vern moves back at the same time. He was from Massachusetts. I was in Maine, and we were spending time together. And I was living in an apartment with a bunch of guys. And one of the guys was a Christian who he would kind of cyclically fall away all summer, come back in the winter. He just had this relationship with the church. And when he would come back, he'd come back hard. And he would always be trying to get us to go to events. And he asked us to go to some kind of a big evangelical event. And we went, it was at a church, like a big mega church. And they did an altar call. The music was cranking and the lights were just right. And like the worship was happening. And my friend Vern gets up and he starts walking to the front. And I'm like, I've come through church world as a kid. So I was like, what's he doing? Because I thought we were like not doing this.
You're like, we
So
don't do these
No, we
things.
know
yeah,
better
so
than
I
this.
start walking down the center aisle to go get him to be like, Vern, pull it together. Let's get out of here. And as I go to grab him, so one of the church elders comes and he puts his hand on my shoulder.
Mm.
And the second he put his hand on my shoulder, I just started weeping, like
Wow.
just fell apart weeping.
The
And
spirit.
I didn't have a dad. And so,
Mm.
it just was like it was a sensation I didn't know, but obviously needed like desert needs water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that led to a really powerful experience. Our whole household, the whole apartment, everybody got saved. And, I became very involved with the church. I ended up living with the pastor and they were training me for ministry. And I learned to read the Bible then. And actually, what's interesting when I look back on what led to me leaving, it was a bunch of things. So I could go through a quick list. Would be like some was hypocrisy in the church. When you live with the pastor, you sure see what's going on behind the scenes, and that can be a little bit shocking. I
Sure.
think we I think we could do a better job being honest about who we are. in
Yeah.
the church, right?
And,
It's
and
hard.
not
It's not
idolize pastors. They're humans too. I
the
mean,
most human, maybe the most human.
it's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's a dangerous role. I would argue whether we need pastors, but okay, so I don't see pastors in the scripture.
Not
Okay, so
the capacity at what especially, well, most churches, I think, Western churches place this pedestal to step onto for pastors that
yeah, like a
that's where
literal
it
one.
becomes dangerous.
Yeah.
That pedestal
Yeah.
is like, I don't know, I think
Worse for the
fake.
pastor than the congregant, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
puts it's a dangerous position to put anybody in. Also, I've it's a struggle for me, the idea of a person who doesn't work except in ministry. I know that there are reasons for it. I know there are cases for it, but I sure think it's awesome that Paul was making tents.
Yeah.
There's something about that where he was like, I don't want to be a financial burden to you. I want to show you through example and of working. I think there's something to be said for that. So anyway, here I am living at this pastor's house. I'm seeing behind the scenes. I also was very interested. I remember when I read Jude and Second Peter and was like, whoa, 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 who's these angels in chains? What are we talking about here? And that led me to the book of Enoch. And I remember that being a scandal in my church.
We were just talking about
We were
Enoch
just talking
yesterday.
about that, yeah.
Yeah, they were telling me like I can't read it. And I was like, so you're telling me I can read The Lord of the Rings, but I can't read Enoch?
A book that
oh,
was
man.
originally in the
I
Bible.
don't think you realize how many people are going to resonate with this, because I have such a similar story with everything that you're saying with the church and being interested in spiritual things that are kind of condemned. And I think that I'm just excited that you're sharing this message, because I think it's very common. It's more common than people realize, and it's just not talked about.
Well, also the Western church, like here in the US and the evangelical churches and the mainline churches, we just don't know what we don't know. Most people do not understand. I think the internet's changing this part.
Definitely.
Social media's changed it in the last year or two. I don't think anyone understood there was an Orthodox church. Like the Russian Orthodoxy, the Greek Orthodoxy, the Coptic Orthodoxy, the Ethiopian Orthodoxy. I knew there was a Catholic church and they were evil and we were the good ones.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that, because I have a really hard time with the label Protestant. It means to protest.
To protest.
It's like,
yeah, you're like, no.
yeah, like I don't identify as a protester against the Catholic Church. That's not my religion.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's weird. James says, you think you're religious. Well, real religion is taking care of orphans and widows in their need.
Right.
Not protesting the Catholic Church. That's a weird religion. But I do resonate most with Protestantism, I guess, like what style I like to worship and pray and read. But I didn't understand how big Christendom was, the history, and I certainly didn't understand that there are places where books like that are considered absolutely essential reading. And so it's very weird to have it, narrowed down to where it's like, no, these 66, nothing else, but you can read all the fantasy fiction you want.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then why couldn't I read like even if you thought of Enoch as like biblical fan fiction, would that be, I can't read it? Like, so anyway, so all that stuff, I end up spinning out of the church. But honestly, I was in my 20s and I had, it's crazy where I ended up. It's crazy where I ended up. So anyway, so that's my involvement with the church prior. I'd had two very significant pieces of my life. My mother's a believer, so I grew up with the language of it, with the Bible. Yesterday, on Mother's Day, I gave my mom lives the most humble life of probably anybody I know. I don't necessarily mean that in a good way, but in a very, she lives on the very fine line of poverty constantly. And so I gave her a really nice King James, but she's like a King James only type person.
No.
So I gave her a beautiful King James, which I know she's never had like a nice Bible,
Wow.
But so I grew up around the word. So it's been part of my life. But anyway, so to get back to where we were, I left that. And also my interest in food was really bothered people in the church. My interest in health. Like I know people who've been pushed out of churches because they like to exercise. It's like a little weird sometimes. And
We just did an episode about that.
Yep.
Okay, so you
Our
guys
last
know. So
episode we recorded.
it's pretty strange because you look back at Jesus. First of all, Jesus's cousin's the original wild man.
Oh, John
Yeah.
the Baptist.
I mean,
Absolute
come on, right? He's
locusts
like
and honey.
living in the woods, eating locust and honey. I mean, that, and we're not talking about he's got beehives.
No.
and an insect terrarium,
We're
right? So
talking about propolis.
yeah, he's eating like wild honey.
Yes.
And, and as a wild food person, when I hear that, I think it lands different for me because I just have all this years of experience of gathering wild food. So it's sort of like I don't really understand cars. So when I talk about the noise my car's making, I don't really know what it means. But if I'm talking to a mechanic, they're sure getting a lot more context than I am. Similarly, when I hear wild honey, I think about, okay, so he's carrying a firebrand, smoking probably, climbing trees with some kind of hatchet. He's got to break into that tree, I mean, this is dangerous,
Lots of
hard.
stings.
Yeah, he's enduring a lot of stings. So this is like pretty wild lifestyle. And then Jesus, no record of him having like a place where he lives, right? He says he has no place to lay his head. And so he's traveling around on foot everywhere. If you believe the Shroud of Turin is accurate, he's pretty jacked.
Which living that lifestyle, naturally you would.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something I want to get to. You take the most domesticated person 2,000 years ago, and their lifestyle would look like rewilding today.
Yeah.
Right? Just by nature, you're talking
Yeah.
no electricity, very limited access to mechanical items. So, so some wheels, some pulleys, of course, things like that, some light gearing, but I mean, no electrical machines.
Right. No Pelotons, no treadmills.
No need for any of that, right?
No.
Not until the Industrial Revolution. And then obviously no computing power. So your brain is sharp, sharp, sharp. And my wife and I have this we always laugh whenever we see something that reminds you of how much cognitive diminishment's taken place, because you know how the average person in like the world, which by the way in the Greek is always cosmos, very interesting with a K. But people out there in what John calls the world, they believe in this, timeline where we just get smarter and smarter and we're the smartest that have ever been. And then you go look at like a third grade math test from 150 years ago and you're like, oh, we've become very stupid.
We're the dumbest we've ever been.
We're the dumbest we've ever been. We're the sickest we've ever been. We're the most out of shape we've ever been. So when you start talking about something like rewilding to a Christian today, it can sound to some people almost blasphemous or like dangerous or whatever. And it's like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that we need bodies adapted to the planet again.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a bit of a word study on this idea of the cosmos.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in it. I kind of had a bit of a disagreement with a pastor recently. I said, the earth is God's, but the world belongs to the enemy.
Right. That's biblical.
He's like, I disagree, because he said God so loved the world. And I was like, okay, he did. But John says, we know we are from God, but the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. Right. And so I've been like digging in on this idea of the cosmos. Well, cosmos, where we get the word cosmetology from, because at first it meant to adorn something. And eventually it kind of came to mean to organize things into something beautiful, and then to organize a system. And eventually the world is an organized system, but it's like an artificial system.
Right. So pause for just a second. Isn't cosmos the stars, the heavens, now? Okay.
That's what we mean when we say it.
Okay. But it wasn't.
But when they translated it into English, they used the world because it was much closer to what John was saying. But John was saying the world more like society than the world like the planet and the ecosystem.
Physically. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So in the world, which is an artificial system, we become kind of adapted to that, domesticated into that. And the more we do that, the less fit we are for the actual world, for the actual earth. Right. There's like sort of a distinction there. So it's important to figure out like what artificiality is. And this will help us understand what idolatry is, I think, too, in a different way, or give us a different perspective. So I always use this analogy.
Interesting too. Sorry, just to interrupt. I'm thinking of how you will know them by their fruit. And the fruit that comes from following this artificial world is a lot of artificial cosmetics and foods, and everything just starts to become more and more fake. It's just all fake.
Have you ever seen the Hunger Games? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
You know how they look in the Capitol? Like, That's sort of what it's looking like now when
I
you turn
know.
on like a
That's
regular
wild.
Netflix show or something and you see the people and you're like, whoa, we're getting a little far away from what humans actually look like.
Yeah.
You know, what
Mhm.
are we? And what does it mean to be human? And if we are in the image of God, which is the icon, the Greek
Mm,
is icon,
mm.
if we're made in the icon of God, see, this is what's so interesting. It's like we are the icon. So, are you guys familiar with the Septuagint?
Those are the books that Enoch is included in, right? It's the books that are
No,
no longer there.
The
Oh, that's the
Septuagint is,
Apocrypha. Excuse me.
yeah, it's the Apocrypha. The Septuagint. So in the days of the apostles in Jesus's day, if you went into a synagogue, the scriptures were in Greek.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
They were written in Egypt by 70 or some say 72 Hebrew scholars that Ptolemy had write down the Hebrew scriptures in Greek so that they could have them in the Library of Alexandria.
Okay.
Right.
And at that time, the Hebrew scriptures had not been written in Hebrew.
Mm,
Because what we call Hebrew today didn't even exist then. It's 150 years old, this what we
mm,
call Hebrew today. Okay, and then the Bible, what the Old Testament we have today is from the 1200s.
mm-hmm,
It's quite recent.
mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
was written by the Masoretes, which were a sect of rabbinical Jews.
Okay.
And it's different, not dramatically different, but it is different than the Septuagint scriptures. They're slightly different, but so have you ever noticed as you read the New Testament, they'll quote scripture and then you go back and you look and you're like, it doesn't actually say it that way.
Yes, yeah,
Jesus is like misquotes the scripture like dozens of times. It's like, what's
yeah.
going on here? That's because they're all quoting from the Septuagint because they didn't have those Hebrew scriptures. They had the Septuagint, but all our modern Bibles are based. The only modern Bible I'm aware of that isn't based on on the Masoretic text is the Orthodox Bible, the Greek Orthodox Bible. Everybody else is using the Hebrew text instead of the Greek text.
Hmm.
And this is a lot, but the reason
Yeah.
why that's
Love it.
useful to know, if you're trying to do a word study on something that's both in the New Testament and the Old Testament, if you have the Septuagint, you can see the Greek from beginning to end, the Alpha to the Omega.
Mm,
So if I said, hey, what word is used when it says that you're made in the image of God? What's the word for image? Well, you'd go to the Hebrew. But it's interesting if you have a Septuagint, you can go to the Greek and then you can find out, oh, is that word used also in the New Testament? And then you're like,
mm,
oh, I see. And when you do that, you get this idea that what's going on is God made us in his image,
mm-hmm.
and then we turn around and try to create all these other images to worship. I mean, we're about to do the worst version of this we've ever done. I mean, we're on the
With
precipice.
AI.
Yeah, we're on the
Yeah.
precipice. Well, because all through the Old Testament, God is mocking the idols through the
Right.
prophets,
Right.
saying they have ears but can't hear, they have eyes but can't see, they have mouths but can't speak. He
Wow.
says, you cut down a tree, you use half the wood to make a fire and cook your food, and the other half you carve into an idol and bow down and worship. It's like making fun of it constantly. But now we're making an idol in our own image that can speak,
Yeah.
Mhm.
can predict the future. Because God will say, like, hey, what idol do you have that can predict the future? Because he's always saying, like, I say that I know the beginning from the end from the beginning. So there's this sense of we are meant to be almost the idol of God in the sense that we are like an image
Mm-hmm.
that bears him within.
Mm-hmm.
But then we carve idols to let some other entity embody. That's been this weird
Cycle,
game,
repeated cycle since the beginning.
repeated cycle since the beginning.
And we're not above it now.
No.
That's something to be very aware of.
Right.
But
So my
people-
question would be this: if we are in the image of God, but we participate in transhumanism and we start to alter ourselves in fundamental ways.
Mm.
I'm not talking about piercing your ears or getting a tattoo because it's like that's kind of always been going on. That's not really like, but if you start to do gene therapies where you actually change your gene sequence,
Mm-hmm.
are you still made in the image of God?
Right.
You know, whose image is that? Or as we begin to alter our consciousness, like, is there a place where we're not in the image of God? I don't know, but I mean, it's worth examining this question, like, where's transhumanism leading us? Okay, so anyway, all that to say,
Yeah.
I'm very interested in what does it mean to be natural versus artificial. So I have this analogy that I use, which is based on stone points, like you would find in an archaeological dig, like would be used for arrowheads.
Uh-huh.
So Arrowheads are typically, this is another thing if you're not familiar with it, but you learn it in the primitive skills world, is how to knap stone into arrowheads. And you can't just use any old rock. It needs to be certain materials that cleave properly when you break them.
Right.
The science of making arrowheads and stone points was so sophisticated and mathematical that when you learn it, you realize how wrong we are to think people in the past were ignorant. It's like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
man, this is hard stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, but if we're walking along in the desert and there's flint everywhere, like you would use to knap a stone arrow, and I bend over and I pick up a rock that's made of flint, and then I go, oh wow, an arrowhead, and I pick that up. They're both made of the same stone. So if I could do the chemistry work and look at them at the atomic level, I'd be able to see that they are actually exactly the same ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And the molecular structure is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
But one is natural, the stone,
Mm-hmm.
and one is artificial, the arrowhead.
Mm-hmm.
And the word artificial comes from well, it's where we get the word art and artifice. And that means to be shaped by human hands or shaped by human will.
Oh, wow. I've never thought of that.
Right. So the stone is
So
still
artifact.
natural.
Yeah.
No humans it's not shaped by humans. So it's not an artifact. It's just an item on the ground.
Yeah.
But the arrow, we instinctively go, that's an artifact. It's been
Right.
shaped by human will.
Yeah.
Human will has been imposed upon it so that it's been altered.
Wow.
So it's the alteration by humans that changes something from wild to natural. That makes sense? And that's not a
Absolutely.
judgment. I don't want to put it there like a judgment, but more like an observation
Uh-huh.
that we have because the reason is because people will argue, they'll say, well, technically, everything would be natural because it all comes from nature. So you'd be like, nuclear missiles are natural, and technically because it's made of things from nature, and so it's helpful to have a distinction. Natural, unnatural is not that useful,
Yeah.
but natural, artificial is really useful.
Because it's the human will that makes the difference. The human
Yeah, it's
exchange
human
of it.
shaping it, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
there's times like when I believe when God first tells Moses at the base of Mount Sinai to build an altar, he tells him to do it with uncut stones. They would be defiled. Obviously, at that time, stone masonry was extremely sophisticated.
Right.
This is like the era of ziggurats, and the pyramids had probably been standing for, I think, probably since antediluvian times. And so
Yeah.
human stone masonry, it's not like Moses wouldn't have known how to cut stone, and they all had just come out of Egypt, right? So it was like, no, I want natural stones, not artificial stones, right? That's
Yeah.
God's command in that moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a distinction. So
And
I
I love
started
that
to-
because I'm getting the picture of Jesus as the rock. It's
Mhm.
natural. It's not touched by human hands. Yeah.
Yeah, the cornerstone, the builders rejected.
Yes.
So if you start applying that to biology, so if you know that there are artifacts and natural things, when you start applying it to biology, you realize that there are biological artifacts. Those are species that have been changed by people.
Mm-hmm. Dogs.
So like all of our dogs are a great example. What's so fascinating about dogs is they're gray wolves, all of them. So if every dog, no matter how big or small or white or black or blonde or red or curly hair or short hair or long-eared or short-eared or whatever dog you have, they're all gray wolves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Human beings, through selective breeding and alteration of the environment and habitat, changed these animals. Well, we've done that with almost everything we eat.
Yep.
So all of the cattle and livestock, all of the plants that we eat, they've all been altered from their natural form.
Mm-hmm.
And once we moved into the city states, we started to remove ourselves from the natural world and live just exclusively in built environments. Now, at first, again, if we're talking about you lived in Ur of the Chaldees thousands of years ago, you were living so close to nature still, right? It's like when you went to the bathroom, you had to like go up, take that outside somewhere and put it somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you think about like your level of connection. Like there's no toilet paper.
Right.
Like
Right.
there's no
Mhm.
toothbrushes. Like you're
Right.
living in a really close to nature world. But fast forward several thousand years, and now we spend all our time in these built environments.
Mhm.
All the creatures around us are artificial creatures.
Mm.
Even
And-
our lawn outside, when you step outside, it's not the natural flowers and herbal things that we can see. We just moved out to the middle of Nowheresville, Tennessee. It's a small town, and I'm just so fascinated on like when I walk outside because we don't have a manicured lawn yet. We're still building everything. We're probably not going to have one because we have bees and we want them to have the natural environment. But I'll look up what each weed is, and it's like this herbal remedy in Ayurvedic tradition, and I'm just like, okay, wait a second. Everything I need is just right out here
Better
in the
tear all that
natural.
away
Like,
and bring in the grass.
yeah, let's bring the
Right.
grass in
Useless
and
grass.
put pesticides on it.
What is that song? We pave paradise and put up a
Yeah,
parking
yeah,
lot.
very accurate. Yeah, I don't mind
Yeah.
spots on my apples. Leave me the birds and the
Yes.
bees.
Gosh.
I've got a neighbor who I live in like a kind of a little development area, and well, actually not really, a private road. But he came up from Connecticut and he wanted very badly to have all the manicured everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he's put in this lawn that, man, the effects have been so hard for me, so hard for me. I have to be like, remember to love my neighbor, because it's like first thing he did was introduce poison ivy into my property. Then so much nitrogen from this lawn he put in that my whole beaver bog turned green with algae and it drove all the beavers away. And,
Oh man.
like it's every couple times a summer, they've got little signs out, like, because they do pesticide application. And then I'll see his kids playing on it, and you're like, man,
Okay.
just
Oh
to
my
have a
gosh. I
lawn,
love
just
that
to
you're
have a
bringing
lawn.
this up because I feel like this is one of those things where we have a disconnect in how we still love our neighbor when we walk. If you have this knowledge, it's so great. And more and more people are getting this knowledge. But I think and this is what the internet does, because we have all this knowledge at our fingertips, now it's polarizing and separating people into these like this side versus this side. And now it's like, okay, how do we come back together in a loving way? Because this is how Jesus did it. He didn't stand on the other side and point fingers and say, you're all wrong. He literally stepped into this other side that people didn't have the understanding and lovingly showed the way.
Taught them.
Yeah.
So
And
how
actually
do we
went in
love
and
our
amongst the people who, like, we're talking about, though, like the
Yeah.
people that you would like be like, oh, those
It
people drive me
irks you,
crazy.
but yes, how do
That's
we
the
like
people he
put
went and
that to
spent
the
all his time
side?
with,
Right, right.
Yeah, it's like it's funny because I'll walk by my neighbor's place and I'll catch myself fantasizing about harmful things I could do to his lawn,
That's just the wickedness of our human heart.
right?
He
And then
doesn't
I'll be
listen to
like,
this podcast because, geez, you're gonna have to have a
he knows.
conversation.
No,
He
he
knows.
knows. He knows. I'll catch myself doing that, and I think, like, in my morning prayers, I go through the Lord's Prayer multiple times in it. So I repeat, in a given week, let's say 5 times 7, 35 times, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
Yeah.
And I have this like frustration in me about them trespassing on my lawn, in my yard, I mean. And it's like, it's so funny because it's like, what a beautiful prayer.
Yeah.
What a necessary, beautiful prayer. On its face, you're like, kind of simple, kind of a simple prayer. Then you're like, oh no, it gets right to the heart of everything.
right.
This is like the heart of everything.
That's
I
right.
think it's so easy to understand that pharisaical view of like, why are you spending your time around these sinners?
Mm-hmm.
When shouldn't you be here with us righteous?
Yeah.
It's like such a reminder. But okay, so anyway, I think that what's happened is we are living now in a completely constructed world. We're living in what I call it the built environment. And that's been going on for a long time, but it's a long, slow change. But now, so I often say in my lectures, we live in 3 worlds. We have a natural world. Now you guys know what I mean by that. That's a world
Right.
unaffected. So I'm not talking about the park.
Right.
And like I
nature
often show
center.
people, I show people a slide aerial view of Central Park. And this is what I was saying I didn't know when I was sitting on that lawn looking at the supermarket. I thought everything around the supermarket was always there. And then they just built a supermarket there. I didn't understand that what I was looking at, all that nature there, had been changed dozens of times. It had been fields, it had been forest, it had probably been strip mined, it had been, so when you see something like Central Park, you're there, you're like, I'm in nature. And you don't realize, no, that was a built park.
Yeah.
They constructed that park.
Yeah.
It's an artificial natural environment.
Gotcha.
It's like going into the biodome or something. Okay, so we have a natural world that's truly natural, and its fringes where it's feral. Then we have our built environment. That's all this artificial stuff, artifact land, I call it.
Okay.
And then we have the digital space now. It's a completely new world.
Mm-hmm.
And the average person is best at being in the built environment,
Mm-hmm.
getting better every day at the digital environment.
Mm.
Young people are very competent in the digital environment. Almost nobody's competent anymore in the natural world.
Wow.
I believe that is why we have so many television shows about people going into the natural world to survive,
There's
because,
probably an inherent hunger because
or
it's
even
there.
anxiety,
Absolutely,
right?
to
Like an
free us
anxiety.
from
Because
it.
if you look at every one of those shows, they always are about trying to get back to safety.
Yeah.
They're not about like, oh yeah, we're out here, we're going to build a homestead and we're going to survive and thrive here. It's always like,
This
naked
is
and
rough.
afraid,
Yeah, yeah.
alone. It's like, how long can you make it before you get back? Because that's the real world's too hostile for humans. And
Mm.
I often joke, I don't know if I did this in the IIN talk, but I'll joke about if you were to go onto like a hiking trail and find like a backpacker. I have a photo that I do side by side of an indigenous person, a backpacker, and an astronaut. And I go, does the modern backpacker look more like the astronaut or the indigenous person? And it's so clear. They look like an astronaut.
Yeah.
But
And
if you're a backpacker, you're like close to nature.
that's it. That's what we think. But
Yeah.
we also, you can tell, it tells you subconsciously what we think, which is I'm going into a foreign hostile environment
Yeah.
that will kill me. So I must have all of the things necessary to recreate the built environment around me,
Mm.
as if Earth is our non-native home and we're visiting it. So when we visit it, not only do we need all that stuff, but we need a plan. People need to know where we are. We need the GPS. I need
We
an
need our bear
SOS.
spray.
I'm gonna need my bear spray and
Yeah.
a plan on how I'll get out of here, because
Yeah.
this is a hostile world.
Wow.
And that's not true, but here's the problem. It's like you can't just take your chihuahua and set it free in the natural world.
Yeah.
You can't just take a person from the built environment and be like, well, you're from Earth, go get comfortable again. Right? That's kind of scary. It's so many centuries of domestication has happened to us that we're physiologically and physically different people than our ancestors.
Right.
And so when I'm talking about rewilding, what I'm talking about is slowly acclimating yourself back to the natural world, which is not to say to not have a presence in the built and digital space, but to say, hey, I'd like to be good at all of them. I don't want to be specialist that's always afraid of the natural world. There's a lot of debate, like pre-trib, post-trib, like whatever. I don't want to get into that argument, but I do think hard times are coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if somebody can't see that, they're really domesticated.
And you're talking about tribulation.
I mean, well,
I just want to clarify for listeners,
I'll say this.
pre-tribulation, post-tribulation. Yeah.
Christ says, I tell you these things so that in me you may have peace.
That's
In
right.
the world you'll have tribulation.
Right.
But take heart, I overcame the world. So
That's right.
whether it's the tribulation or it's tribulation, whatever's coming next, I just don't know how people can not see it.
Uh-huh.
It's so obvious.
To me, it is modeled with the way that Jesus walked as a person because of how he steps away. He had his wilderness moments. And I want to encourage listeners in just knowing that although we have become this domesticated type of person over time, when you step into nature, when you go outside, there's something, and you're just alone, and maybe you're prayerful or whatever it is. If you're not a believer yet, hopefully you will be, but you have moments where you just have these innate knowings of like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Your brain starts to think differently, and it's just moments. I feel like that it happens, especially for me personally. I would consider myself on the spectrum of both sides extremely. I went into a lifestyle of like very like pop culture living, and now here I am living out on a farm, and we're building our own house, and we're really just trying to get back to that simplistic way of living. And so I just have felt it myself where when I'm outside, and I guess I would say, as somebody that believes in Jesus, that God's voice just is able to speak to you differently. And in that voice, you connect with his creation.
Yeah.
And
you're triggering something for me I would like to expand upon there too,
Okay.
because one of the things that in the church that is so contentious, or so you guys were talking before, like about you don't know when you might offend somebody or raise all their like alert systems, right?
Yeah.
So when you start talking about nature and the feelings in nature, it's like,
Yeah, they're
like
Yeah.
God didn't create that or something. What are you
that's
talking
like the
about, right?
Eastern, that's the Eastern culture. It's like,
Okay,
no.
so here's the thing about all of that Eastern religion.
Yeah.
I want to just kind of sum all this up. New Age, or maybe it's old stuff like Hinduism,
Mm-hmm.
or it's astrology, or
Mm-hmm.
it's any of these systems that we look at today as like pretty taboo.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't say it's not real. He just asks you
Right.
not to do it.
That's right.
Right? Okay,
It
so
is
let me
very real.
explain what I think is going on here. You guys can agree or disagree, but I think it's something like this. The Watchers come down and trade knowledge for sex, basically, to have children.
Mm-hmm.
The Nephilim.
The Nephilim are the children. The
Mm-hmm.
Watchers are the ones who come down.
Mm-hmm.
The Watchers come down and they know all these secrets about how the creation works because they have been entrusted with those secrets. So this would be like, let's imagine you play a video game, an immersive video game, like an immersive one, like you're in the game. You can't tell you're in the game. You're just in the game,
VR.
but you have no idea how the programming works.
Mm-hmm.
But then a programmer downloads himself and goes, listen, I can tell you a whole bunch of cheat codes for the game. I know the secrets of how the game works. I know how it was coded. And I know that if you incant this or incant that, you can change aspects of reality. You know, you think of the power of mathematics, of written language, astronomy and astrology. These are extremely powerful tools and they emerge spontaneously. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they don't exist. And then all of a sudden, Sumer, 6,000 years ago, boom, it's just like huge written text in cuneiform. They understand fully the precession of the equinoxes, which is a 26,000 year cycle. Like, how do they understand all? Just suddenly they have all this knowledge, all this mathematics, stone cutting technologies that we can't even begin to understand because it's not the Iron Age. They don't even have iron tools, but they're cutting stones the way they're cutting stones.
Yeah.
It says in Enoch that they gave them the secrets that men had been questing after. Right? It's sort of like in the garden too. In the garden, I get this sense of the knowledge of good and evil isn't bad. It's that you need to be ready for the knowledge.
Right.
Okay. So if you have a child and it's not that you want that child to grow their whole life and never have sex with anybody. You
Right.
hope that they're going to not only have a partner, a husband or wife, but that they're going to have children. So you hope that they're going to have sex.
Right.
But when they're 3 and 4 years old, you don't expose them to sex.
They're not ready for that
They're not
knowledge
ready
yet.
for it, right? So the serpent comes along and he exposes people to something they're not ready for.
Mhm.
So if you expose a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or 13-year-old kid to sex, we already know what happens.
There's damage.
Major damage. And they're going to probably not only be hypersexualized, but they'll seek sex as a replacement for love, and they'll end up, unless they find a way out of that, that'll plague them throughout their life, right? I mean, we all know this, and the number of women who are sexually assaulted at some point in their life speaks to this. You see it everywhere, right?
Right.
So, and now we're learning what you guys know. So it's pretty pervasive.
Yeah.
Okay, the Watchers expose us to knowledge we're not really ready for. And I believe it works something like this. Like I know astrology is real because I've gone deeper than dabbling and I know that it's real. But I believe it's kind of like if I want to have the best experience of the video game, it's important that I not think about how to manipulate the game, but instead I play the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. The point is the lessons learned by playing the game. But if I go, hey, instead of playing the game, I'm going to start to figure out what the game is made of and how to manipulate the game. And maybe I can make side quests and side rooms that were never part of the game. And maybe I can become immortal in the game, or maybe I can, and that manipulation of the game is the sinful part.
What a
So
great
that-
analogy.
And that's becoming God.
That's the whole thing that goes back to Eden.
Yeah.
That's what happens at the tower.
Yeah.
That's what's happening today.
That's right.
That's the whole prediction of the end. So
Yeah.
the whole story is that the players in the game start to try to change the game from within.
Mm.
And now we're trying to create our own game within the game, like Inception, like layers deep.
Yes.
And there's this deep desire to shut out the voice and the knowledge of the game creator.
Oof.
So then that the game creator then has to go, well, what if I download my son into the game?
Amen.
Right? Because there's another layer of it, which is until he came, there was no escape from the game. Somebody had control of the game, and this person wasn't our friend.
Right.
And the souls were kind of like trapped here
Yeah.
in Sheol, like there's no way out.
Right.
And he comes and he makes a way out. He's the first one to come and overcome the whole system, the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, okay. So anyway, how we get there? So
Is this going to turn into a movie? I
you're
sense
living
a
it.
movie
You're
plot
living it,
happening.
sister.
We are the characters.
This is the movie. Yeah. I think the movie is about to get real interesting too.
Yeah, the plot is upon us.
The plot is upon us.
Climax.
Well, it's the greatest story ever told.
That's right.
Right? It's the ultimate story. I mean, every story when you watch Hollywood, man, has it become so boring, huh? So boring.
Yeah.
Everything they put out, you're like, okay, so it's like a weak biblical analogy turned on its head, so it's
Exactly.
satanic. Okay, guys, I get it. All right. Everything you guys do. But okay, so I think what's happening is this artificial world we're creating, artificed, shaped by human hands. There's a connection there to idolatry, which is when you shape the God with human hands, right? It's this idea that what we were given isn't enough. We need to improve upon the creation constantly. And the funny thing is, my favorite analogy is Fantasia, the movie Fantasia by Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love where Mickey comes in and gets a hold of Merlin's hat.
Yeah.
And that's the source of Merlin's magic, and Merlin's out. And Mickey starts to play with magic. He's too young and immature and undeveloped to understand what the consequences are. He only can see his desire. So he starts to manipulate the world with magic. Do you remember he starts to create all this chaos?
Yeah.
And he's like, uh-oh, I got to clean it up. So he starts the mops and buckets. Okay, the more he tries to fix it, the worse and more out of control it gets. And every new magical trick solution makes things worse. And that's what we're doing, right? So it's like, oh no, we're running out of whale oil. Wait, oh great, we've discovered fossil fuel. Okay, now we'll do that. Oh, that's leading to all these problems. Well, let's go solar. Now that's leading to all these problems. And everything that we do, we try to patch and fix with the next thing, and it's getting more and more out of control. And I think, again, I mean, you'd have to be extremely like asleep at the wheel not to feel right now how unstable of a world we've created for ourselves. It just feels like any day you could wake up and like look at the news and be like, oh, it's all falling apart.
Yeah.
You know,
And I want to pause and just remind listeners, though, that that's where the faith comes in. Like that's where faith is so big and so important, because this unwavering, this unsteady foundation that you're talking about, there are people waking up that are terrified, and that's what the enemy wants. If you can control someone when they're in fear. So
but it can also lead you to God too, right? So there's two things that can happen. What I'm seeing happening is that bifurcation where some are so afraid that they will do things to themselves that are, I mean, COVID was that was eye-opening for me. I don't want to offend anybody here. I don't want to offend you guys, but I mean, I was like, I'm not taking that vaccine. You'll have to kill me. I'm not taking that vaccine.
That was my eye-opening moment as well.
Yeah. Like, because they called it a vaccine, but it was a gene therapy.
Yeah.
And people who got it, their bodies still manufacture spike protein. That's pretty weird, you know? That's a weird, okay. I'm not saying don't invent the technology, don't invent the technology, but to try to act like it's not a brand new experimental thing and everyone needs to do it, you have to create a tremendous amount of fear, not just fear like, the sky's falling, fear like I'm going to be socially outcast.
Exactly.
Because that's actually scarier. It's like you think of like the worst prisoners in the world, like the most dangerous, violent, aggressive males. You can reduce them to sniveling babies by putting them in solitary confinement. That's the only thing you can really do with somebody that bad. It's like the worst of the worst fall apart in solitary confinement. So if you start to threaten people with removal from society, okay, so that's happening. But there's you guys must be seeing it, huge contingent of people who've been driven to God
absolutely
by the sight of evil.
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Now it's manifesting. Like, it's so interesting to be at a time. It's so interesting to live in a time where evil is unmasking itself because it
Yeah.
feels confident to walk openly amongst us.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you guys probably know this, but I love Matthew 24, which is the Olivet Discourse. That's Jesus. That's when the disciples come and go like, when's all this stuff going to happen? And what will be the sign of your
Yeah.
coming and the end of the age?
Right.
And by the way, that the church has missed this. I don't understand. The apostles missed this. I don't understand. They were living in Greece, which had a very sophisticated calendric system. An age is an actual period of time.
Yeah. Explain this. I heard you talk about this on Luke Stories podcast, and it was
Oh, yeah.
eye-opening.
Okay, well, you know, this whole idea that where the sun rises, so the zodiac, which means the zoo, you know, this just means the zoo.
Because of all the animals, yes.
Yeah, because all the animals, what you're doing is basically taking a circle and dividing it by 12,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So that you get
The months.
30 degrees.
Okay.
And a month, which is actually a month, it's one moon cycle. By the way, this is another really interesting thing, right? The church today acts like if you were like had a moon calendar, it's like, oh, yeah, it's witchcraft. It's like, okay, first of all, it says that two lights were put in the sky for days and seasons,
Yeah.
and the whole Hebrew calendar is lunar. What are you
That's
talking
right. And
about?
it's completely different than our
Okay,
Gregorian.
and that goes back to this, what the whole point of our podcast is that there are so many good things and what people now call taboo.
Mhm.
And it's just that Satan has taken what it originally was intended to be and counterfeit it, which we're
Yeah.
it's very clear on that happening in the Bible. So I think it's important for us to note that instead of just writing everything off, and you're actually moving in fear by
Yeah.
doing that instead of actually understanding the depth in which or why this even
Yeah.
came about to be a religious practice of some sort or
Yeah.
way, you know, it.
And cutting yourself off from a tremendous amount of life.
Yeah.
Because like the moon was put in the sky for dates and seasons, right? So
Right.
so a month. And then so that's but anyway, so back to my point. The sun, where it rises on the spring equinox,
Mhm.
this is what all of those ancient sites are. They're all calendars, right? You guys probably know that. Like they're all
Stonehenge,
calendars.
yeah.
Yeah, and they all are tracking the precession of the equinoxes, which is that every year the sun rises a little bit one step back through the zodiac. Everything else in the zodiac, like throughout the cycle of a lunation, which is like one cycle of the moon, it moves through all the zodiacal signs. Or in a year, the sun moves through all the zodiacal signs. This is not, first of all, it's not woo-woo. This is just astronomy.
Right.
And second, it's not magic. It's just astronomy. So if you want to figure out where the sun is, you need a backdrop. So like, let's say that I said that Lucy and Stephanie were in the 30-degree section of the end table with the plant,
Right here.
right? And right now, like that's where you are. But if tomorrow you're over here and I'm like, oh yeah, now they're in front of the door,
Mhm.
and you guys moved in a circle throughout the room, I would just be describing where you are using the backdrop. That's all that is. So the constellation in the backdrop will say the sun is in Aries because Aries is behind
Ah.
the sun, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, well, that equinox point where the sun rises, it moves through the entire zodiac in about 26,000 years. They'll say that the Earth on its axis has a little wobble.
Mm-hmm.
I think wobble sounds a little too unintentional. I don't like that term wobble, but it does reverse itself through, and each section of 30 degrees that we call a zodiacal sign is an age.
Okay.
With me?
Yeah.
Okay, this stuff gets weird and it will make some people will not like this, but
Let's hear
Jesus
it.
was born right at the beginning of the age of Pisces.
Okay.
That's going to be roughly 2,160 years till we enter the age of Aquarius that all the New Age people are talking about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
We're at the transition between the ages right now.
Right. Which that's exactly what he talks about at the end of
All
the
through
age.
it, the end of the age. What's going to
Yeah.
happen at the end of the age?
Yeah.
Now, the Greek is eon,
Right.
Aeon.
Mm.
This is a known amount of time. Now, look, you can't know the day or the hour, but you're supposed to know the season.
That's right.
he says it multiple times. You remember when he says to the Pharisees, like, actually, I shouldn't say, I don't know who I can't remember exactly who he says it to, but he says, when you see in the morning that the sky's red, right, you know that weather's coming.
Yeah.
How come you can interpret the signs of the skies, but you can't interpret the signs of the times,
Yeah.
right? Or he also says about the fig tree.
Yeah.
He's like, learn the lesson of the fig tree.
Right.
When the leaves come out, you know that summer is here. So he's telling us, and he says, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. We're now at the end of the age. Now, it might be, right now, it might be 100 years from now, but we're at the end of the age. But the apostles do not seem to know that through the whole New Testament. They're like completely confused, like about when he's coming. They're like, it's any day now. He should be here tomorrow. And it's like, guys, the age just started. My impression is that this age is the big opportunity to see where your soul sides.
That's right.
Right? What do you choose? Like, which part of the harvest are you going to be? I feel like you have a scripture you want to read. I want to give you the space.
No, I was just looking up at Matthew 24, where you explaining no one knows the day or the hour. And he says, two women will be grinding grain, one with a hand mill, one will be taken, one will be left. But know this, if the homeowner has, no, that's not the part I was looking for.
But that part, can you read that part about the homeowner? Yeah. That part is really cool.
So it says therefore be alert, since you don't know what day your Lord is coming. But know this, if the homeowner had known what time the thief was coming, he would have stayed alert and not let his house be broken into.
Okay, who's the homeowner and who's the thief?
Yeah.
So the thief is the one who's going to come and take one out of the bed and leave one. The homeowner is Satan.
Oh, wait.
The whole world lies in the power of the evil one.
Yeah, which that's in John.
He's coming like a thief in the night. And if the reason we can't know the day or the hour, because if we knew it, then Satan would know it, and he would fortify to make sure that he couldn't have his house plundered.
You know,
he's already had his house plundered once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like Christ went and preached to the spirits and plundered Sheol. And so he's trying to take as many with him as he can. So he didn't exactly want to let that happen. You know, you got to wonder, like, remember that Satan is the prince of the powers of the air.
Yeah.
So as they show us more of these powers of the air, like, oh, by the way, there's all these unidentified objects and orbs and these, you know, oh, why we got here is because Luke's version of the Olivet Discourse, which is most fleshed out in Matthew 24, but Luke's version of it, Christ says that we'll see phobotron in the skies.
I haven't heard phobotron.
Phobotron, terrors.
Yep.
So phobotron in the ancient Greek is usually translated monsters.
Yeah.
But it also means like an object of terror. So if you were going to have like a haunted house, like the creatures that jump out would be phobotron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to see phobotron in the sky.
Yeah.
The prince of the power of the air.
Right. And
This
like
is
you said, they're showing themselves more and more recently.
And it's starting to be revealed. So
yeah.
I'm getting ready to give a lecture next month, and starting off with a slide of like the frog being boiled, because I want to point out to people, like, you remember the conversation 10 years ago and the conversation we're having now, because we're having a real weird conversation now. The conversation today is, okay, we're having conversations like, well, with AI, how many humans do we really need? Like, sorry.
What? Please.
What are you saying?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We are talking about replacing people with robots. We are talking about the rich elite potentially not just abusing young people, but maybe actually eating people.
Which goes back to Old Testament.
Right. Now, that's weird stuff. Even if that isn't happening, that's the conversation that's happening.
That's becoming a normal undertone.
Normal part of the conversation.
Yeah.
We're talking about Israel building the third temple.
Yeah.
The conversations that are taking place now are so outlandish and actually way further than where conspiracy theorists were at 2 decades ago.
That's so true.
Right? And all the stuff that the conspiracy theorists were saying 2 decades ago are all coming out now to be true.
We call them conspiracy realists.
Yeah, or like pattern recognition.
Yes.
Sorry for noticing. So one of the things that's hard for me is to listen to people do this thing where they go, well, it's like they only want to accept what they can prove right then, even if the whole track record shows you otherwise, right? So it's like,
Right.
even if you saw them forcibly vaccinate almost the entire world in a giant genetic experiment with no control group,
Mm-hmm.
and then found out that actually everybody who was against it was right, these things
Mm-hmm.
killed tremendous amount of people.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes is like a couple of years later, and people are like, "Yeah, I'm ready to believe again."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or lately, my wife and I have been having this conversation about the moon landing in 1969, which I'm
Yeah.
like, guys, I'm sorry, but I can't. I
Yeah.
just can't. It's too much. That's
Yeah.
too ridiculous.
And that was so long ago, really not that long ago, but still from where that was
Yeah,
to
like
today.
your toaster has a better computer in it
Right.
than they had then. But no, they didn't just go. They brought a dune buggy and then ripped around on the moon in a dune buggy. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Like you
Oh
you flew a
man.
dune buggy up there. If you even got a micro tear in that suit, like you would implode. Like what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Actually, no, you would explode. Sorry, not implode.
Wow.
What do you
This
think? Okay, so this is so interesting because I've seen interviews with astronauts that were on the moon and they totally believe it. Like
Yeah.
they believe. I actually know a woman whose uncle was one of the guys that went to the moon and she's like on her Instagram sometimes like, "I know that my uncle went to the moon." Like he
I need it to be true.
That's a good
I
thing
mean,
people want to believe.
I know they
Yeah.
wanted to believe, but if she is that close to somebody that they're not just lying.
No.
They believe they went to the
They
moon,
believe they went to the moon. Now,
which
okay,
is
how about
that
this?
to me
How
is
about let's
scarier.
be fair here. Maybe they went to the moon, but that footage is not real. And that phone call was not real. Like you didn't call the president in the White House from the moon. I'm sorry. I don't even have service on my road here. You're
Yeah,
joking, right? Like, come on, dude. But okay,
that's so
that
funny.
stuff is definitely fake. This is a long story, and I know how defensive people want to be about it. But once you get on the other side of that and go like, okay, that probably didn't actually really happen.
Yeah. I think that's where we're so stuck. Like you said, it's a lot easier to convince people than to convince people that they have been lied to.
Yeah. Right. And once you've accepted the lie,
Yeah.
it's really difficult for a lot of people. I have a friend, we argue about this, and he can't he it's okay, maybe you guys have seen me talk a little bit about this, or surely you've heard other people talking about the origins of NASA, where you have Jack Parsons with L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, can you make this stuff up? It's like L.
Yeah,
Ron Hubbard, the science fiction writer, and Jack Parsons are doing satanic rituals to try to birth the Antichrist.
Wow.
And he develops the rocket program that becomes NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab.
Yeah.
Then the other main guy is the Nazi scientist that we brought over here during Operation Paperclip. And those guys are the beginning of NASA. And I love, like, I have another argument going with some friends of mine. I keep saying arguments, they're conversations.
Yeah.
Uh, I've these wonderful church friends, kind of normie. And we have a men's group, and I always keep trying to introduce to them, guys, I know how patriotic you are, but like, it's not a Christian country, and it never was. And they can't accept it. They want to be like, rah, 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 America. And I get it because I've been there in my own mind at times. But I'm like, okay, guys, what do we call all these rocket launches that we do? Apollo,
Mm.
Gemini.
Mm.
Like, why are they all named after gods from Greece and Rome? Why are all the Capitol buildings designed after Hellenistic and
Pentagons.
and Egyptian temples?
Yeah.
Why are they covered in all of this imagery and iconography of the gods, but never Jesus?
Hmm.
Why God specifically says in the Old Testament that he hates obelisks.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have? The largest obelisk in the world is in Washington, D.C. It's a
Washington
giant
Monument.
phallus
Right.
across a reflecting pool to a giant womb, which is the Capitol building,
Right.
with a giant pentagram in the streets. All this designed by Freemasons, who are definitely not Christians.
That's what I told him. I said that's going to
Okay,
be my
so
next deep dive.
what's coming to mind for me in this whole conversation is where Paul says that you should be eating meat instead of drinking milk. And I think the church
Mhm.
has done a disservice to congregants and maybe making them feel that this knowledge is not good for you. Like, don't go down that
Right.
road. This knowledge is not good for you, when in reality, it helps you digest the meat.
Yeah.
It helps you go
Oh,
deeper.
you're onto something really important
And
there.
yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
yeah. And so I just kept hearing that as you're talking, and it all relates to all of this,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
if you're in Christian men's groups where they're like, oh no, we don't want to hear about that. Like, we just want to be like, yay, jolly Yankee Doodle. Here
Get
we
rid of those
are,
Iranians.
4th of July fireworks, woohoo. I mean, like
Yeah.
that. And the thing about knowing certain things
Mhm.
and the hope that Christ brings is there's a depth there
Mm.
that, yes, if you're immature in Christ and you choose to not go into the maturity in accepting what the Holy Spirit can do to transform you, you're going to be exposed to the knowledge, like we talked about earlier, in a way that damages you and
Mhm.
can't help you move forward in your walk with the Lord. And
Mhm.
so I think that that is so
Mhm.
important
Mm.
to understand that concept. We are required to go deeper. The deep calls the deep. We can't just sit
Mm.
here in our church and our happy festivals
Mm.
and, our celebrations and, fun hats and outfits and think that that's the end of what Christianity is.
Our trick or trunk at the church
Our
parking
trick-
lot.
Yes, trunk or treat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
all that's
thank
so
you.
good. It's all good. I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah,
It's
there's
fun. It's
community
great.
and all that.
It's so great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love it. Our church does all that stuff, and I think it's so great. But in your walk with Christ, you can't have the end point while you're still here
That's
and
right.
Yeah.
think that this is, like, oh, well, here I am. Like, I showed up every Sunday and, you know,
Yeah,
I'm
well, I'll spit you out of my mouth, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
I never knew you.
That's where the
Are you guys
danger is.
familiar with
Yeah.
so I really have you're identifying right now a real struggle that I feel in myself, and I think we should identify it. And it's like I've got a book on the shelf back there behind me, Practicing the Way by
Yes,
John
John
Mark
Mark
Comer.
Comer. I read that last summer.
Okay, that book powerfully. I mean, I picked it up in a bookstore, it brought me to tears
Yeah.
instantly. Like that book really impacted me. I'm the worst at that, and
Mm.
I'm real good at this other stuff.
Well, we all have strengths and we all
Yeah.
have giftings, and that's why
Yes,
we're the body. The body
correct,
needs to come together and we need to have conversations. This is
correct,
exactly why we're doing this
That's
podcast,
right.
talking to you.
correct.
I hope people can come to a place in their lives where disagreement doesn't end a relationship,
Yeah.
that we
Oh,
can get
yeah.
closer to this place where we're having
Right.
conversations about things that we disagree about, people that are so different from us, and we can still just find the way. It's the
Yeah.
way to speak in loving kindness toward
Mhm.
your enemy, your perceived,
Right. Or people who aren't our enemies, which even more so.
right, your
Yeah,
neighbor.
But
your neighbor.
but there's this piece about this where don't stare too long into the abyss lest you become it.
Yes.
So here's the danger. The danger is me thinking that I do my Christianity by figuring out what the enemy's doing all the time.
Say
There's a
that
real
again.
The danger is that I try to do Christianity by spending all day figuring out what the enemy's doing
Mm.
instead of walking with the Lord.
Yeah.
Like ideally, okay, so my wife is like the extreme opposite.
That's kind of a version of the game you talked about, though, where you are looking at the creation of the game and how you can get around things, and
Hmm.
it's
Except
like,
I'm trying to look at the ones that are doing that, figuring out what their next move's going to be.
see, Satan's
But I take
sneaky.
care of my household, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I'm paying attention because I want to be out ahead of all of this. And I don't want to be deceived.
Yeah, that's where
And I
discernment comes
believe
in.
that my job is to talk about these things. I think that's my job.
Yeah.
But like I gave a lecture last year, and there was like a big Q&A. It was mostly health stuff, but I remember a lady asking me like, "Well, how do you remember all this stuff? Like, how do you?" And she's like, "And how much studying do you have to do?" And blah blah blah. And I was just like, "Listen, you don't want to, like, it's not good for your head. Like, you don't want to. It's I kind of wouldn't mind being blissfully ignorant sometimes of certain
Right.
things."
I've had that
Or
thought.
or I don't think my wife is ignorant. She's quite discerning. She just is so busy serving all day long, especially with children. And her opinion is if I look at this stuff, it's in my spirit now, and I'm going to go spend the next hour with a child with that in my energy. Like,
Mhm.
it's not really maybe good. Like she would prefer, she's like, yeah, I get that that's all happening, but like that doesn't change that I'm supposed to put my lamp on a lampstand.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if I spend all my time in the darkness,
Mm-hmm.
like in these gross places, studying all this gross stuff, sometimes I'm irritable and angry and frustrated. And it's like, that's not it. That's not the thing. So there's a balance here to be had.
Yeah.
I think it's like, yeah. So the danger of staring into the abyss is that you become it. And the
Right.
danger of being ignorant is that you're lining up for the next booster because you're like, yeah, well, they must all be good.
So there's a narrow way.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned
narrow
way.
earlier, you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier
Well said,
how the
Virginia.
apostles missed this. And for some
Mhm.
reason, immediately I thought, well, God chose, I mean, they were chosen for very specific reasons. He could have
Yeah.
chose one of the wise men or,
Right,
somebody
right,
in that
right.
realm that read the stars
Yeah.
and he didn't do anything like that. Maybe they were
Yeah.
supposed to be ignorant of
Right.
that part of it for their specific purpose.
Yeah.
And it was a very specific purpose for all of us,
Mm.
obviously, as well, but in that time. And so I think that that is something to be noted that we all have these just multifaceted giftings and
Yes.
purposes that
Right.
are very different. We can't all
Yes.
fit into the same box. So it would
Right.
be doing an enormous,
Disservice.
disservice to yourself to believe that you need to just like follow the masses and just do what everybody else is doing. That's not what God has for
Or
anyone.
that you need to go all the way down the other side either, though. I
Right.
think it's
Right.
like, so it's like, okay, so there's a balance, but each person's balance is dynamically different.
Yeah. There's a
Right.
bio-individual balance.
Right. So I have the capacity for a lot more darkness,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I grew
I
up in
don't.
darkness. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I tried that out and I actually realized
Yeah.
like, oh, that is not
poison your
for me.
spirit.
I can quickly pick up what's happening, but if I really dive deep most of the time, I start to become what I have perceived as God. It's not part of my path. I start to
Yeah.
become more judgmental and just, paranoid, and it doesn't
Mhm.
work for me. I can be a more loving person when I can brush the surface over things and really just focus on flowers.
Yeah. But ultimately what I'm hearing there is focus on love, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
love.
the mission. Yeah. So like you're saying, like I can get to where I'm so hyper aware of all this, like the enemy's henchmen communicate through symbolism in front of us all the time.
Right.
They'll often say, if you go deep into the conspiracy world, they'll say they have a religion where they believe they need to tell you what they're doing so that they don't incur the karmic debt of just doing it to you. So if they're going to poison you, they have to tell you openly. If they're going to create a fake cataclysm,
Oh,
they
yeah,
have
I've
to
heard
first
that.
make 16 movies about it to
Yeah.
tell you that they're going to do it before they do it. That's why
gotta be like
everything
a
you're seeing now
symbolic
has been in
thing.
movies all up until now. It's called
Mhm.
predictive programming.
Yeah.
I don't think that's why they do it. I think they do it because if you read Job, there's this fascinating thing where God takes a wager with the
Yeah.
enemy.
Yeah.
Mm,
He
yeah.
says, if you.
Mhm.
I think that's gone on a lot.
Mm,
I think that's gone on with the Bible, for instance.
mm.
I think the reason, I have a feeling, this is absolute Daniel Vitalis speculation, so just to make a clear container around what I'm going to say. I imagine it's something like, okay, you can deceive the whole world like this and this and this, and you can change this much of my word, but that's it. Because look, if we get all the different translations off my shelf here, like people are like, there's zero contradictions in the Bible. I'm like, guys, that's not exactly true. Just read the four gospels and how
They're
they all
all
end.
different. Yeah.
They all have a little bit different. Like four witnesses at a car accident.
Right.
Everybody's got a slightly different view,
Angle.
And recently, okay, so here's something interesting. You probably come across this. There's stuff in a King James Bible that's just not even in my ESV because new texts have emerged that are older, and they'll go, hey, that was never really there. That was probably a later edition, so they won't put it in. So like one story that's in the King James, but not in modern Bibles, or will be footnoted as in modern Bibles, is the story where the Pharisees bring the adulterous woman and ask Jesus like if they should stone her, basically. And you remember he bends down and writes in the earth, and then he says, let he without
I didn't
sin
realize
cast
that
first
was
stone."
taken out.
I didn't either.
Okay, so that is not in the earliest manuscripts.
Okay.
So there's a belief that that might not be original,
Okay, I see.
might be a later edition. In China, where they're trying to change the Bible, they've changed that story. The CCP's changed that story where they've got a version where Jesus stones the woman at the end.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
Now that's interesting because think about it.
That's
Like,
different.
yeah. Now think about this. Technically, they wouldn't have changed God's word if that's not technically God's word, right? So, like, what are the rules? They might be operating within certain rules. Like like if you get a later edition in there, then you could change that. You would, you know what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
when you read the Bible cover to cover, you're like, oh, there's this whole court thing going on. There's a legal proceeding. There's covenants. Covenants are legal arrangements.
Right.
This stuff's all the blood is, and there's a ransom payment. Like this whole thing is there's a judgment at the end. This whole thing is like a big legal case. And I don't think they can do certain things because it's the rules. They're still playing in God's rules, right? Satan's still playing in God's rules. He's just saying, hey, I bet I can take a bunch of these souls with me. And God's like, well, let's see if you can. Again, speculating, but that's kind of what I've drawn out from Job and some of the apocryphal books.
Sure.
So I think that that these people are communicating with us in symbols all the time because they have to tell us. Like the vampire can't come into your house. He has to be invited over the threshold. Then once he's invited, he can feed on you. But he can't just come in your house while you're sleeping without permission. They get your permission, your consent. We click that consent form all the time. Oh, new rules and regulations to your iPhone. Yeah, like just share consent because I'm not going to read 16 pages of this stuff. We agree to everything, right?
Right.
In all these different ways. Anyway, my point is, I can get so obsessed with this stuff that I'm looking at the symbolism in everything, and I can't enjoy anything. So it's like a movie, some music.
Yeah.
All I'm hearing is like all the messaging.
I know people like you, and I respect the research, but sometimes when I hear them speaking about it so fervently, I'm like, oh no, like what about the joy of
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
Lord?
where's your joy?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're missing the
Yes.
joy. It's still here, I promise. You
Yes.
just gotta look for it. I remember I was standing outside recently and I just heard God tell me, like, you will find what you look for. And it was just like so clear. And I was like, okay, because I'm living in a house right now that's like totally under construction. Nothing is done. And I can get very caught up in that. I can get very caught up in the in-between and being kind of frustrated with like, when is this going to be finished? Like, I really just want this to be done and we can live comfortably, like just like everybody else is trying to do, like find that comfort. And God literally like stopped me in my tracks and said, what you look for, you will find. And in that moment, I was standing outside and I just felt this peace of like, there's beauty here. Everything's unfinished. Everything's seems chaotic in this moment, but I am here in this moment and you will miss it if you don't look for it.
Yeah.
You're going to miss it.
Right. So that I love this saying. It goes, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift we give ourselves called the present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a fun way to look at it because that is what happens. And this is one of the places where I think the Eastern. So here's another interesting thing. Just because something isn't 100% true doesn't mean it's not got truth in it.
Right.
Right. So like a lot of the Eastern traditions, which are focused on contemplation, meditation, and being in the present moment, like that's some pretty good stuff if you ask me.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that because I heard you touch on that in the Mystic
Yeah.
podcast.
Just bringing that into
I've
the
always had
biblical-
that feeling, or kind of like when people really push back on certain things, I'm like, wait, but like, why are they even using this? There's got to be something in here that has a little bit of truth if this is what Satan does, if this is his pattern.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He wants you to. So he just wants to get a drop of poison into this.
That's
He
right.
doesn't care if this is 99% pure water.
One drop
He just
of
wants you to get
yeast.
that little drop of poison too,
Yeah.
right? So what I found in my somewhat deep exploration of all these different traditions, and particularly I've done a lot of experimenting with psychedelic drugs a lot. And I've seen some pretty wild things. Most of it was good. I'll be honest. Like I just can't tell you like, oh, I don't think there's any value to those things. I can't tell you that because I think there's value to it.
Sure.
Where it starts to get dangerous when it's all of these things, where it gets dangerous is it always comes back to this, you will be as gods.
That's right.
That's where it always goes. So it's not that being in the present moment and meditating is bad. I mean, the Bible seems to be pretty hip to that. Um, I don't think it's that the devil can create plants that have biological, effects on the human mind. Like he's certainly not a creator.
Right.
Right? It's not the devil's lettuce or whatever. He didn't invent that. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I mean, let's be real here. Like this stuff's here, right? So, and it has powerful effects. The the part that we have to be careful of is almost every other tradition besides Christianity or the Abrahamic religions has a you'll become God component to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
So they're being used
Yeah.
for that purpose.
yeah, and that doesn't mean the rest of the stuff isn't valuable for edifying you because it
Right.
is, right? So it's kind of like, is it good to exercise and eat good? Yeah. But what I see happens is people become so obsessed with themselves. So Project Self becomes the main thing, right? It's like how I look, how I feel, how I look in relation to other people, how my
Mhm.
abs look, how because then before you know it, there's this whole self-obsession and you're
Mhm.
trying to perfect yourself.
Mhm.
And the problem is, and I'm sure you guys know this, is like we're all such profoundly broken people
That's right.
and so profoundly like, man, I'm just so profoundly broken
Yeah.
that when I used to love all that stuff,
Mhm.
man, because it makes it easier to live without God.
Mm.
Because living without God
It's a
is
hidden
like
form of control, the
Yeah.
manipulation of how
that
you
you,
can, your
yeah,
body and
yes,
yeah.
yes.
But
Yeah,
it but
and it can
it's empty at the end of the
at
day.
the
You're
end it's empty, but
continually
you can't tell
pining.
for a while. You chase it and
Right.
chase it because there's like it's like the carrot on the stick. It feels like you're going to get there. And then one day
Mhm.
you realize like let's say you're a fitness influencer, right? And you have not just you're in shape, but you have that genetically that great body so that you
Mhm.
can, you know, be all day with your clothes off on Instagram and you look just amazing
Right.
and you're chasing that perfect body. The problem is like eventually you sign S. No
That's
matter
right.
what you do, no matter how many peptides and filters you use,
Right.
eventually you're chasing something that only can start to fall away
That's
and
right.
until it's completely out of reach, right? There you never actually can achieve that goal.
Mhm.
And that's the same with these people who are chasing, whether it's through implanting neural link chips or
Mhm.
it's through genetic engineering or it's through AI. They believe they're going to reach a godhood, but
Mhm.
obviously they won't. It's like,
Mhm.
guys, don't you get it? You're going to put the chip in your brain, and then in 3 weeks, you're going to need an updated chip
Yeah.
because there's going to be a new one and it's going to be
Yeah.
more expensive. And you're going to need to, and then eventually you're going to have so much scar tissue in your brain, you're going to have to come up with a new thing. It's like Mickey with the Fantasia thing where it's
Yeah.
like every solution creates a new problem. So they think they're going to become gods, but like this has been the thing people have been trying to do for 6,000
Centuries.
years. It's not going to happen.
That's right.
And recognizing how incomplete we are on our own is the greatest freedom. So people are
Amen.
thinking they're eventually going to get freedom if they chase this thing long enough and they go deeper and deeper into slavery.
No.
And true freedom is actually when I was just
Completely
looking into the
surrender.
word today when I always wondered what Jesus meant in the Sermon on the Mount when he says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," because it's like, what's poor in your spirit? I mean,
Mm.
wouldn't you want to be rich in spirit? It's kind of a weird. I didn't really understand, but the Greek really is talking about a person who has lost everything to the point that they're like empty-handed on the ground, can't even stand up because they're like crippled
Yeah.
in absolute emptiness.
Yeah.
It kind of what I think it actually means is when you've reached spiritual rock bottom, the
Yeah.
kingdom is yours.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're still holding on to some glimmer of hope that you're going to make it on your own or do it yourself, then there's always that like maybe we can become as gods.
Right.
But when you
Right.
finally have to let it all go because you're like every single attempt I've made to try to fix myself fails
Yeah.
and always fails me, that's when you become that's like when you can because here's some more controversial stuff.
Bring it.
Jesus says the Pharisees are like, when are we going to see the kingdom of God? And Jesus says, it's not coming in a way you can see. Then
Mm.
he says this powerful thing. He goes, the kingdom of God is in your midst.
Mhm.
And the word is middle, midst. It's
Mm.
in the middle of you. It's inside you.
Mhm.
Okay. So do you know where Paul says that he's talking about, it's in Ephesians, and he's talking about the love of God, and he talks about the length, height,
Depth
depth,
and
and
width.
breadth.
Yes.
Okay, so 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
We live in 3 dimensions. We cannot perceive 4 dimensions.
Mhm.
Have you guys ever read the book Flatland? You might have heard me talk about it a little
I've
bit,
heard about of it, but I haven't read it.
really powerful book, kind of booklet from the 1800s by this mathematician who I think was allegorically trying to explain some of this.
Cool.
So it's about a 2-dimensional world. So picture a flat plane like a piece of paper, and all the beings that live there are different shapes. They're like circles and squares and octagons, and they all have their different classes based on their shape. But when they see each other, remember they live on a flat plane. If you're a circle and the other one's a square, all you can see is a line. The only way to know if it's a square or circle would be you'd have to go the full circumference around to see if there was angles and shapes. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
We're looking at it from down above in 3
We can see
dimensions.
it.
We can see what shape they are, but they can't see that.
Right.
Now imagine you're a square on a flat page,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to describe what a cube is to you. Like, how can you perceive a cube? You have no idea of altitude. You only know north, south, east, and west.
Mm-hmm.
I go, oh, no, it's like it rises up above. And they're like, above like north? And you're like, no, it's a direction from your center that goes upward. And they're like, there is no upward or
Wow.
downward.
Wow.
Now imagine I want to show myself to the square. I'm talking to the square. The square can hear me, but he can't see me. So I go, I'm going to enter into your world so you can see me. So I go and I stick my fingers down in the plane. He's just going to see 5 circles. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you're 5 circles." And I'm like, "No, dude. I'm a lot more than 5 circles.
I love it.
Yeah.
Here, I'll show you more."
Right.
I plunge it down to my wrist. "Oh, you're one big circle."
Wow.
All he can see is that one cross section.
Uh-huh.
And he can't see what's inside the cross section. Like I can see that cross section of my wrist. Oh, there's all my carpal bones in there, right? My carpal tunnel, and there's my arteries and tendons. Can't see. All he can see is the perimeter, right?
Yeah.
In the book, there's a sphere that tries to enter into their world. And when he does, and he descends down in, he's a small circle that becomes bigger and bigger till he hits his equator, and then he becomes smaller and smaller as he goes through their plane. They can't understand what they're seeing. At one point in the book, the square gets out into the 3rd dimension and has a vision. And when he comes back, everyone thinks he's crazy. Right? Okay. Keep in mind that from 3 dimensions, I can not only see the shape, I can see inside the square.
Mm-hmm.
A 4th dimensional being can see inside you
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that you can see inside the square.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have depth.
Hmm.
We don't have depth.
Yeah.
We have height, length, and width.
Right.
There's a really powerful painting by the surrealist Salvador Dali, who's a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
He painted Jesus crucified on what's called a hypercube.
Mm.
And that's,
Yeah, I've seen that.
seen that? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes this way, and then 4 cubes around like this. Now that shape, so I'm going to tie all this together in a minute. Sorry, I know it sounds like a lot.
Okay.
If you took a cube and you unfolded it, it comes out in the shape of a cross.
Hmm.
Can you picture
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And then you could fold that up into a box.
Mhm.
Right.
So if I want to explain to the square in Flatland what a cube is, the best way I can do that is to unfold the cube and lay it into his dimension so he can see the cross shape.
Right.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
That shape Salvador Dali painted Christ crucified on is a hypercube. It's an unfolded 4th dimensional cube.
Wow.
That shape that he painted is what is our way of unfolding something from the 4th dimension, which is called a tesseract, into the 3rd dimension so we can at least see something.
Something. Yeah.
But we can't perceive how you fold it together because you have to have the dimension of depth,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So the direction, remember I said that with the square to become a cube, he'd have to go up from his
Right.
middle. For you to go to the 4th dimension, you have to go within.
That's right.
So that the kingdom of God is within you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the direction to it is inside. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a physical location like, oh yeah, it's just next to my left atria. It's a dimensional shift to the inside.
Yeah.
God and the angelic beings can see into you,
Yeah.
right? That's pretty powerful to think about because they're living in a higher dimensional world. And it's very interesting now because if you're watching closely with all the UAP conversation, they've really shifted away from they're coming from other star systems to that they're interdimensional. That's where the conversation, even at the congressional level, is going towards interdimensional entities. And there's this whole conversation: is the church going to be able to handle this? What will happen to Christianity? It's like, guys, this is Christianity.
This is in the book.
This is what the book is about. This is the main
Exactly.
thing it's about.
Wow.
So I have this sense in all of the contemplative traditions we've been talking about in the East are all these meditative practices to go within.
Yes.
And I think that's what prayer is. So you think about like whether it's a psychedelic experience, whether it's a sexual experience, whether it's a meditation experience, whether it's a dream, whether it's worship, where do you go? It's like not out there in the room. You go inside, so into that fourth dimension. And I think that the game that we've been talking about is a three-dimensional game, but we're not three-dimensional beings.
Yeah.
That's why he says, like, you're not of this world, you're in this world, but you're not of this world. Your soul is definitely not of this realm. It's incarnated here right now for whatever the purpose of this is, this refining fire that we're in.
Yeah.
But at the end, you'll have a body that is like an angelic body, we're told, right? That I think we're going to, I don't know if it's 4 dimensions or it's 10 dimensions or whatever, but I mean, that's a great allegory for understanding that the way to access that place is not outside of us, it's inside of us. And so it's really important that we have a way. I just always think about your sinoatrial node in your heart, which is where your electrical pulse comes from, that creates the rhythm of your heart. It's like you have a spark plug in there. Like, what's the spark?
That's right.
Where is that coming from? Because I don't think
And
it's
that's
coming
where I
from
think we get, the mega church version of accepting Jesus into your heart. And it's so interesting because you said you had a radical experience through a mega church. I always tell people when they ask me when I was saved, it was at one of those big stadium Easter Sundays when I was young. I still remember to this day, and I just had a conversation with my aunt about it because she was there and she remembers too. That's when I went forward. My life was totally, a wave of prodigal moments after that. But the Bible has this ability to have the depth that is mind blowing I know listeners are going to hear this and it's going to be mind blowing for them, but then also for a child to understand.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is
faith.
where we need to trust that God has got this. Like he is doing good works in people in ways that even the people that are studying won't be able to understand because of this type of dimension that we just cannot even fathom,
Our smartest
depth.
can't, our most spiritual can't. Like it doesn't. I love that God is not he's not a respecter of persons. Like he doesn't care like what your status is. He doesn't care like how the world sees you. It's like we're all, I think, going back to something I want to connect back to. What's interesting to me, it's like when we started at this and you were kind of like sounding like maybe you didn't think I would respond to your message or something. And I have that experience all the time too. If people say yes to an interview and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I didn't think they would, One of the things I learned from getting to flirt with a little bit of fame and be around, I've never been real famous, but I've
You have a
been on
TV show.
I have a TV show.
You have a TV show.
Stage presence.
Yeah. And I had a more wild experience before I got married. So, 10 years ago. And so 2 decades ago, I had a decade that was pretty indulgent and pretty wild. And I got to like see kind of what goes on behind the scenes, which is everything you're hearing about that goes on behind the scenes.
Wow.
And
Same. I've been there.
Yeah.
I had a wild ride in Hollywood, backup dancer or whatever,
Okay. So,
we'll talk about that later, but yeah.
So, so it's like, it's really interesting how even if you're the most famous and wealthy and connected person, like those people are so profoundly broken too. And it's so, this game that we play of idolizing, it's really interesting. We actually call it like, we have like American Idol. It's like, is anyone hearing it? Are you hearing it? Idol? Or like all through the Bible, though the fallen ones mainly, but also the sons of God are called stars. right?
Yeah.
Oh, what
His
do we
tail
call
sweeps
famous
a
Movie
people?
third of
star.
the stars down to the heavens,
And
Wow.
it's
from the
totally
heavens to the
socially
earth.
acceptable to say, "Oh, they're just my idol. I need to get their autograph. They've been my idol forever." Every time somebody says that, I'm like, "Wait, what are you
Yeah,
saying?" Like,
cringe,
yeah.
cringe. Yeah, I often point out like that, before electricity, what humans did for entertainment was look at the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And the stars, they had stories about the constellations where they're characters and they're doing
Wow.
all this dramatic stuff. Like this god represented by this one slept with this one, and then this one
Yeah.
killed that one's baby,
Yeah,
and
all
then that
this.
one reincarnated. And then now we watch the stars and we watch their dramas on play, and it's a surrogate facsimile of what we were given.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
That we call Hollywood.
That we call, yeah, the holy wood. So I think that
Hmm.
it's very interesting. But
Yeah.
as you guys know, those people are profoundly broken too. Like
That's
there's
right.
no amount of money, fame, success, people liking you that can fill that void inside that
Yeah.
is meant to be filled by God. And actually, like as I go deeper, I'm realizing the importance of worship is in prayers. It's like you need to humble yourself before something.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it with, like, I really struggle with the label Christianity sometimes because I'm like, look,
Mhm.
okay, like, what are we talking about?
Mhm.
Peter Thiel from Palantir says he's a Christian and he's out there
Mhm.
preaching like that the Antichrist is going to come to try to stop AI. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't think we're the same kind of Christian, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a Christian is a Catholic and a Christian is an Orthodox and a
Right.
Christian, I mean, I watched a documentary recently about the FLDS, the
Yeah. Latter-day
Mormons,
Saints.
I was
and
gonna bring that up too.
watching them use the name of Jesus while they molest a girl. You're like, they're
Ugh.
invoking the name of Jesus Christ,
Yeah, it's
and
terrible.
Wow.
it's like, okay, they call themselves Christians. Like the whole thing is like, I don't know. I know I'm following Jesus. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean?
Yeah. But I like to use disciple. I think that
Yeah,
that
love
goes
that.
straight, and I got that from following the way, like
Yeah, I
truly
love
trying
that.
to be a what is the word? What's the word he uses in the book?
Apprentice, I think,
Apprentice.
right?
Thank you. An
Yeah,
apprentice under Jesus.
yeah. So I think that, I, for me, humbling myself before God, but humbling myself before Christ, the alternatives, you're going to humble yourself before something,
Right.
You are always being discipled by something,
by something.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to choose.
Yeah.
And I remember being part of that church I was telling you guys about in my 20s, and I remember it really distinctly. I had this dream that really disturbed me. It was that we were all at like a church meeting or something, and I remember the pastor who I lived with in the dream started acting all cool, and he was like hitting on these girls, and he was like, all this ego, and he was like being Mr. Smooth, and I remember like obviously a fear that I had that there was something um, like not inauthentic maybe, or a fear that
Mhm.
that would happen or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I've seen it now for real so many times that it's like the idea of putting my faith in any person is just like impossible.
Yeah.
Like the Christ is what there's so many things I love about Jesus, but like that incorruptibility, because he says, I overcame the world.
Mhm.
It's so interesting how he's the son of man. He's a man, but he's like the perfected man who Satan has no claim on,
That's right.
because he says the ruler of this world is coming, but he has no claim on me,
That's right.
because the only claim would be sin gives the claim,
Right.
and that allows him to basically to kill you, right? Like that's
Mhm.
the death, like
Right.
Mhm.
the spiritual death.
Yeah.
So to see a man who, because every person, it's like, let's say you were like, oh, RFK, like he's going to bring health back to Trump. Oh my God, Trump, right?
Right.
Like if you were a Trump person, boy, today it's like really hard to be a Trump person. Or if you're an RFK guy, and then it's like, now you're like, man, what happened? Like I thought we
Yeah.
were doing this, like
Yeah.
glyphosate, what are we talking about here? Or
And
any
and the
person.
Bible actually preps us for that, because every good king fails.
That's
Every,
right.
Yeah,
King
miserably.
David, I mean, gosh, he really was a great guy,
Pretty
and he
bad
has
at the
some,
end there.
yeah, pretty bad at the end. I mean, and Jesus came to fulfill all of
Yeah.
that. And I
Mhm.
think that people just, I don't, we so easily forget.
Mhm.
And then we go back into this this pull. It's just like this constant pull,
Mhm.
a spiritual battle, I guess you can call it.
Oh, well, let's tie all that around. So, okay, so you talked before about how you feel when you go into nature.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Why, if one of the reasons it's so, for many, there's many reasons. One of the reasons it's so beneficial is because the reason that I think one of the reasons we so easily fall back into these patterns is we're constantly being bombarded with so much noise and distraction and frenetic energy and the God, there's just so many cool things that Jesus said. You know, I love his parable about the sower
Yeah.
and all the different types of ground that the seeds fall on.
Mhm.
Well, I know that when I'm hyperstimulated and I'm on a sugar high, and if I'm caffeinated and I'm like tired and there's stress and all of that, boy, my heart goes from being fertile soil to like that hard trampled trail that the crows come and pick the seed off of. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm.
And when you go into the natural world and all that's pulled away and there's nothing artificial, so nothing's made by man anymore.
Mm.
Because what I worry about is for young people is that they live in a world of artifacts where everything is made by people. So you start to think that people made all this.
Mm.
Mhm.
People must be the ultimate authority in the universe. But
Mm.
you go out into nature and it's like all that's gone.
Yeah.
Now it's getting harder to deny that there's a creator.
Yeah.
There's beauty and rhythm and intelligence that's so sophisticated. You got to come up with some explanation. Like, how is this here? You know? And
Mhm.
there's none of those external things that are trying to cloud my judgment and ability to see that. So it's all stripped away. The wilderness strips all that away. So it's like you laid bare
Yeah.
and it's humbling, but it's also because to receive, you need to be in that humble place, right? Like you were
Right.
talking about when I gave that lecture and the hubris that I had at that time in my life.
Yeah.
Um, Hard to receive very much when you're in that place,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
And
So,
that brings me to the reminder of at the end of the day, it is a choice. It's a choice to follow the way or not. God gave
mhm,
us free will. But with that, also, the Spirit does come inside of us. It is there and it does allow us to make that choice.
yeah. Yeah. And I think we are quickly approaching. I do believe so. I mean, I guess it's pretty obvious. I'm kind of an end-timey dude, and I think we are at the end of the age.
Yeah.
And I
All
think,
signs are pointing toward it.
yeah, I've been collecting everywhere in the Bible that talks about what the end days will be like.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And if you read through those scriptures, just take them, out and just read those, it's like, okay, wow, we're into some interesting territory now. Um,
And
a
the
lot of the stuff
birthing
is,
pains are,
Upon us.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's a
and
place
people will
in,
say, well, we've always had wars and we've always had natural disasters. Well, if you know birthing pains,
It's the consistency.
yeah.
yeah,
And but there's a lot more stuff too. Like
Right.
right.
like Paul tells
Prophetic,
Timothy,
prophetic
Paul tells
things.
Timothy what people will be like at the end.
Mm.
Mm.
Do you know that part where
No,
he
what is
says,
that? I've got my Bible.
yeah, so I think it's Second Timothy. Boy, you might
Okay.
have to edit me
You're
reaching
fine.
through here. Um, this is so powerful to me because you're like, okay, I think we're talking about right
Oh,
now.
yeah, I got it.
You got it? What is the
Now I have CSB, so if you want to read
uh,
KJV, go for
give
it.
me no, I don't read kids. Give me your what's
Uh,
the verse?
2 Timothy 3, chapter 3.
Do you mind if I read it?
Go for it.
Okay, but understand this. In the last days, there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power.
Wow.
So to me, it's like that's never really been the conditions before. This level of ego celebration, this
Yeah.
level of wealth chasing, like obviously all this stuff's existed, but it was always the cultural norm that you didn't put your ego too far forward. It
Right.
was always the cultural norm that you respected your parents.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
never been like where you could openly be this way before. Another one is where in Second Peter, he says, he talks about how in the last days there will be people. Let me just pull it because it's so important.
Yeah.
He's talking about people denying that there was ever a flood. And
Oh,
that's never
wow.
happened before until just recently. Everybody everywhere in the world believed there had been a flood.
Wow.
And that wasn't until just recently that that's happened. Um, Wow, I wish I had a better recall of exactly where all this stuff is. But he says that they will be willfully ignorant that the world had been deluged. In other words, they
Mm.
will choose to not believe,
Mm-hmm.
and that, how does he say it? He says, oh, I gotta find it for you.
Is it oh, this is First Peter 4, end times ethics.
No, I believe it's in
No.
Second
That's be
Peter.
alert and
Ah, here we
sober-minded.
go. I got it for you. This is so good. Uh, You should remember the predictions of the holy prophets and the commandment of the Lord and Savior through your apostles, knowing this, first of all, that scoffers will come in the
Mm.
last days with scoffing,
Mm.
following their own sinful desires. They will say, where is the promise of his coming?
Hmm.
For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all things have continued as they were from the beginning of creation. For they deliberately overlooked this fact that the heavens existed long ago, and the earth was formed out of water and through water by the word of God, and that by means of these the world was that then existed was deluged with water and perished. So they're scoffers. Right now is the first time in history where you have a whole world of scoffers. When you say there was a flood, they scoff at it, and then they say everything's always been this way since the beginning. That's a completely new concept, this geological paradigm we're in, where it's like the layers built up slowly over millions of years. Like that's never existed until recently. So it's again, it's
Yeah.
one of
I
those
recently
conditions
saw
of
a
the end.
documentary about that.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember what it was called, but I just watched it for like 5 minutes and was like, oh no, we gotta get out of this.
It's
What's
pretty
happening?
wild how like sometimes they find like fossilized trees growing right up through like all the layers where you're like that's
Yeah.
kind of
Okay,
makes
so
your
this is my question for you then, because you have a cable TV show and knowing this, like, how is all of this for you intertwined in that part of your life? Is it
Oh yeah, I'm in the most so God has really done something unique for me. I have never been part I'm not part of the industry. I have no connections in the industry. I have no personal connection to the network I'm on. I don't know anyone at that network. They don't talk to me. They don't invite me to events. They don't oversee my show. They don't
Oh
ask
wow.
any questions. I have two guys in New York that I work with who handle all of that conversation, and I just make the show. And I
Wow.
have been completely, I'm completely segregated off from the industry. I am probably I would have a hard time believing there's anyone in the industry as remote to it as me. It's so unusual. And when I tell people, they're like, that's not how this normally works. So
Yeah.
I think personally, I have
Covered.
a specific mission so here's what I think's coming. I think that there's going to be a lot less food around.
Mm. Yeah,
And I think that for multiple reasons, but well, yeah, because one, famine is one of the four horsemen,
that's right.
but, but also, it's funny. I think back to when I met my wife. She was in a yoga teacher training. It was 20 years ago. It was my first public talk. I met her at my first public talk. We didn't become a couple for 10 years after that. But I remember I came in, I was pretty far out back then. This is years before the talk you guys saw from me. So maybe 10 years before that. And I was telling people I was there for 2 days. And at one point, I was telling these teacher students, trainees, that the UN was going to choke off the food supply for like several billion people. And boy, they were mad at me. Like no one could hear it, you know?
Wow.
No one could hear it. And I was 20 years ahead of my time. That's me always. I'm always way ahead. So you sound crazy. And then years later, it's like everything's proven out. But if you've been following it the last few years, particularly in Europe, they've been cutting off the farms, they're shutting
Mhm.
down farms, they're taking away the ability of small farmers to do what they do and consolidating all the farms. You guys aware that we've just given Palantir control over the USDA's they're partnering with the USDA. Palantir is who basically the AI stuff that runs all of the war, basically, and all of the
Wow.
yeah. I mean, like Palantir is like created the software the military is using to execute the war.
Yes, yes, I have heard of that. So now
They've
they
now
have control
partnered
over
with the
USDA.
USDA to oversee. They're going to catalog Palantir also is the one who've gathered a file on every American,
Wow.
who you are, what you're into, that kind of thing. Now they're turning to the farmers and they're going to control the US food supply essentially.
There you go.
Initially they're tracking it all, but yeah, so you see where
Mhm.
that's headed. There's no fertilizer getting through the Straits of Hormuz. Um, the elites, so-called, have been very clear about their desire to have there be a lot less people. They
Mm-hmm.
call us useless eaters. They have been talking at the World Economic Forum about using ticks to create meat allergies. Not that that would ever happen. So we're seeing this like transition happening in the food supply. So obviously gardening and farming is like a great thing for people to do, but I took an alternative path, which was like, well, what's the other way? Because people used to eat this way with wild foods, and
Yeah.
those are famine-proof foods.
Wow.
So like you would have a really hard time starving me out. I'm not saying you couldn't put me in the right place, but I've learned so many foods doing what I do.
Yeah.
I just know where to look for food and I know what food is. Most people don't know what food is, which is completely bizarre.
Yeah.
Food is living creatures. Like that's what it
Mhm.
is. You have to eat living creatures. And so the learning how to do this, making the show, I think was personally something God wanted me to do because that was knowledge that some people needed to watch and see. And I didn't have to sell out to do it, which was really cool.
Yeah,
And
that's
and I'm
amazing.
done now. I made 60 episodes. This was my last season.
Wow.
And so I'm coming back into podcasting now.
Okay.
I look at it like I had 6 years in the wilderness.
Yeah.
I had a lot of deadwood to burn
Literally.
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. And I needed to go through a transformation myself. But
Yeah.
now I'm like emerging out of the wilderness. I've left this archive of 60 episodes of this show so people can learn how to survive in their environment off the foods that are there in a way that isn't scary, but it's actually like a fun hobby. That's how
That's
I
so cool.
presented it. And
And
I do,
isn't that I just want to pause for a second and say, isn't that the way that God would work? You know, your refinement period is now going
yeah,
to be left
yeah,
for posterity
yeah,
and in order for us to look back on
right.
when that horseman comes,
Yeah,
hopefully
exactly.
before, so that we have the knowledge. But yeah, that's how God works.
I think so. And yeah, it's been a huge honor to get to do that. But I have been, like I said, really lucky, really blessed because I do have friends in the Hollywood world where you're like, man, that's a bad place, a really bad place through
Oh,
and through. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's like a lot of times, in Christianity, in the Christian, YouTube world, for instance, everything's like, that's demonic. This is demonic. That's demonic.
Hmm.
I think a lot of the stuff we say is satanic and demonic isn't. It's something else. It is Satan, but it's not what like the satanic religion. But Hollywood actually in the music industry is into actual like
Satanism.
Satanism, like the
Hmm.
actual kind of like super corny queer like Satanism, like the actual like cheesy Halloweeny stuff. They're
Yeah.
like that's their aesthetic. They're actually into that, like some of these other characters who are big players, they're into like transhumanism and
Hmm.
eugenics, but I don't think they would think of themselves as like pentagrams and like black eye makeup
Yeah.
Satanists. But
Yeah.
Hollywood is, I think that's what's going on there.
Well, it's all just the spiritual realm,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
the
exactly.
principalities of the
Different
dark
ways of
world.
interfacing with it.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, we want to wrap up with just a few things. We could absolutely talk to you the whole entire day.
We'll all run out of mental fuel eventually.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. But one question I would love to ask is actually two, quickly, is with your knowledge and your traveling on this earth, do you feel that God's creation point back to his divinity? In other
Oh,
words, there's a common, maybe not so common, but how certain foods actually are beneficial to certain parts of our body and you can tell by the way they're shaped or the way that they look, carrots, for example, for the eyes and avocados for the uterus,
yeah.
things like that. What within your studying and traveling have you noticed that? Could you prove, for example, a divine creator?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's so holographic. It's like on every single possible level. You know, we all carry a genetic code, which is a language.
Mhm.
It's a computer code, kind of, It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's how we think of it, right? Like if you think about like in the 1500s, if you wanted to show how anatomy works, you did like pulleys and ropes for the
Yeah.
muscles because that was the technology of the time. When I was a kid, it was like your body's like a car, it runs on fuel because that was the technology of the time. Now we're in the computer era, so it's like, oh wait, our genome is like a
Hmm.
code.
Hmm.
Well, that means there's a coder.
Right. There you
So
go.
why are there laws to the universe if there's not a lawgiver? Why is there the alternative theory is that there was nothing, but the nothing got so concentrated and heavy that it exploded. And when it exploded, it just became everything and then came alive and self-wrote a code. It's like, guys, that's
And
way more religious than my
And they
view.
think we're crazy.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that we're crazy.
And then that goes back to they're the God
Yeah,
again.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that all of creation's constantly pointing back, but I think the fact that the world's made of language makes it pretty obvious that there's a
Yeah,
somebody spoke it into existence. And that's
absolutely.
why our God that we worship is the Word
That's right.
of God. He's a spoken word of God, you know?
That's
Mhm.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
which goes back to the word of God is alive and
Yeah.
active,
Yeah.
sharper than any two-edged sword. All right. And then finally, if you were going to give a tip today to a listener for some easy ways to get reintegrated back into nature in this industrialized world,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Wow, there's so many things, but if I was
Watch
going to
the
make it
show.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the
exactly.
tip.
If I was going to give the most like simple and easy entry point would be to pick a place that you can consistently, repeatedly go to in the natural world. Like it could be in your backyard if you have a yard, or somewhere on your land if you have land, or in a local park if you don't have a yard. But some place where you can go to and kind of ideally not necessarily be so observed. You know, it's like your prayer closet kind of an idea
Yeah.
that you can just go sit and leave your phone in the car if you drive there, leave your phone in the house if you know, take all your electronics off. It's kind of what I mean. And just go be in that place. Maybe it's 5 minutes, 3 days a week or something, and
Mm-hmm.
just consistent sit spot where you can start to okay, start to come to your senses.
Oh,
You
all
have
five.
five senses and they're
Yes.
basically like blown out. So come back to your sense. So a place where you can sit and actually just, instead of like frenetically doing, it's
Oh, I
just
Yeah,
love that.
seeing,
I do too. And
hearing,
that's
smelling,
be
tasting.
still and know.
Yeah. 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 Because when all the noise goes away, like we always talk about that, like that still small voice. Well, it's like, well, how am I going to hear that? Like, unless I
Yeah.
get, so I think something like that. But I would add additionally, like, I always like to recommend people learn one plant that grows where they live, as simple as a dandelion. Learn how to use it. So not just, oh, that's a
Yeah.
dandelion, they're edible, so in the future maybe I'll eat it. It's like what's going to happen is you go out and think, oh, that's edible, and you taste it and you're like, that's not edible because you didn't do it right. Like it's right now is the edible season for dandelion, and it's over in like 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Right now, it's a short period of time, but there's different things you can do. Later in the year, it's an herb for medicine. Earlier in the year, it's food. But learn actually, and then practice it. So actually
Mhm.
get good at like, okay, this is how I harvest it, clean it, process it, and utilize it. If you learned one plant this year and next year another one, and before you know it, you've got this catalog of species. And that's the same with hunting or fishing or whatever it is. But it's not just so that you have food. It's because these are creatures that God made, and you're meant to be in relationship to those creatures.
Mm.
And part of the artifact land is that we only know other people and our dogs and cats, and we've cut ourselves off from all the other creatures.
Mm.
And we're supposed to preach the gospel to all
Oh,
creatures.
wow. Yeah.
Huh.
So I think getting introduced to some non-human people is probably a good thing to do too.
I love that. And not going to AI for the information. Where would you say to go to
Because
about
we're
that
out here
plant?
taking pictures of all the plants, like, look
Yeah.
this.
I've been making a lot of videos about this lately. I know I'm eating up a lot of your time here, ladies. I apologize.
You're fine.
I think it's really important to have study tools that are paper-based.
Yeah,
So I've been really recommending old dictionaries, you can get a set of encyclopedias used now for so inexpensive. They're going to shut this off at one point.
I
They're not going to
agree.
let us read about them eating babies forever. I mean, they're going to shut this off at some point. And they probably won't do it until people have gotten to the level where they don't know how to access information anymore.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous. Look, I've gotten pretty good on Google in recent years. I don't use ChatGPT or any of those, but I figured out how to be like, hey, Google, what misinformation are conspiracy theorists saying about, because if you just ask a
Yeah.
question, it'll
Right.
give you but you
Right.
can figure it out. Well, what's happening is we're having cognitive diminishment. So I think
Right.
it's really important to have book based. So let's just say we're talking Bible. I mean, I've got my concordances, I've got my genealogies, I've got all the names in the Bible and who they are and what they mean. I've got my different translations, my Greek parallel, like all of these different tools so that I can do this stuff offline. And I think that's really important. And additionally, I think just practicing, honestly, your basic math skills is important. I think practicing writing with your hand and reading out of books. If every day you reduced your technological addiction, I think is probably the right word to use.
Absolutely.
By even like an infinitesimal amount, you're trending in the right direction. Everybody's going to be barreling in this direction, and you want to just be slowly moving in this direction. You will be a Luddite for doing that, but later on, you'll be seen as super wise and prepared, because there will come a time where I have a guy, I got somebody I'm working with right now, a copywriter. Man, you'd read this guy and think, wow, this guy's a genius. Take away ChatGPT? Maybe not one. So pretty soon, everyone's going to seem real smart, but they're not going to be. And if this stuff ever shuts off, you want to have a mind that still works. That's called anti-fragility, so that when systems break down, you're actually in better position. And that's not hard to do. It's just a little bit of investment every day in yourself could do that.
And Paul gives us that in Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the patterns of this world. So
which is what the church has really done, right? I mean, that's what, we do all the holidays, we do all the same, you turn on the Christian radio station, you're like, oh, these are all the same songs with Christian lyrics.
5 songs to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like all that, so we've become the world. And I think, like I said in the beginning of this, the earth is God's, but the world is in the power of the evil one.
Yeah, amen. The earth is God's. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to let people know where they can find you also, so that you have your Wild Fed season 6 now airing on the Outdoor channel, and then it's also on Friendly TV.
You know what? Friendly TV, let's forget that because it's not important now. It's when the episodes were premiering, but all 6 seasons, all 60 episodes are on myoutdoortv.com or motv.com. That's the streaming service for Outdoor channel. And they're the kind of the only channel, and it's like all the hunting content's there. Yeah. So you can get like a free 1 week if you want to go just binge a bunch of episodes and see what it's like. And then it's probably like $10 a month or something. So if you wanted to see all 60 episodes, you could probably do it for 10 or $20. Awesome. And you can buy them on Amazon Prime as well. And then, let's see, I'm most active, like you guys said, on Instagram. That's where I'm like actually personally there.
And that's at wild.fed.
I'm actually at Daniel Vitalis.
Okay,
so at Daniel Vitalis. Wild Fed, like I said, I've just wrapped that whole project. Gotcha. So everything I'm doing moving forward, I'm about to launch the Daniel Vitalis Show, which will be my new podcast. That'll be everywhere that podcasts are. Very excited about that.
I hope you're going to keep spreading this Jesus light on there.
Well, what's been interesting is every guest that I've been bringing on, it just comes up and you're like, it's interesting when you see who something, I know I keep doing this, but something I've learned is, when you're praying for somebody, it's so easy to think God's not working in their life. He says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come into him. And so it's like, I have to remember that he's knocking on every single door. Amen. And sometimes I'm talking to somebody who I think, well, this person couldn't possibly be like looking towards Jesus right now. And then it just, every episode I record, it just keeps coming up. Like, not a Christian show, but it's keeps trending that way because people are feeling Jesus right now.
That's right. Right.
So I think
the harvest is ripe and the workers are few. So let's keep making them.
That's it.
Yes. Amen. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you guys. I really enjoyed this.
Yes. Take care and best of luck and God's blessings upon your life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.